Chapter 181. Yang Tian felt a little dazed. Because just after he and Dumbledore signed the unbreakable vow, the old headmaster couldn't wait to take him to the Ministry of Magic overnight. Minister Fudge and Scrimgeour were also somewhat bewildered, because just when they were still struggling to figure out how to clean up the mess caused by the inability to properly interrogate the black-robed wizard, Dumbledore actually came with a little wizard and vowed that this kid could solve the problem. Well, Minister Fudge complained secretly, only you, Dumbledore, dare to brag like this. If it were someone else, do you think I would just kick him out? Although he was disdainful in his heart, Cornelius still maintained the fake smile and etiquette that a politician should have. Oh, this little wizard must be an outstanding student of Hogwarts? What's his name? Hello, Minister. My name is Yang Tian. Faced with the minister's false expression as if he was just doing his job, Yang Tian really had no desire to talk. Okay, take us to see those men in black robes. How could Dumbledore not see the two men's contempt for Yang Tian? He could only make a direct request, hoping to let facts speak for themselves. Mr. Dumbledore, are you sure you want to do this? Every black-robed wizard is very valuable, and they may have vital secrets in their minds. Scrimgeour, who had been watching coldly, suddenly interrupted. I am sure, Mr. Scrimgeour, that is why we need to cure them, rather than just leave them lying there and do nothing, because they may hold vital secrets in their heads, right? Dumbledore insisted. Okay, this way please. Seeing Dumbledore's determination, Cornelius Fudge finally compromised. In a huge room at the end of the corridor, 4 or 5 Aurors walked back and forth from time to time, observing the condition of everyone on a row of beds. But at this moment, the door was pushed open with a click, and Fudge led everyone in one by one. Look, it's all here. Fudge pointed to the bed. Yang Tian didn't waste any words and went straight to the nearest bed. He calmly turned on his inner vision and used his brain to simulate the physical condition of the black-robed wizard. After observing everything, Yang Tian couldn't help but smack his lips. Good guy, this vicious restriction is fine, it's similar to Mrs. Zabinai's. But what the hell are these additional measures? But it didn't matter. For Yang Tian, who had inner vision, all these means would only delay him for a little longer. With this thought in mind, he casually took out the ancient magic wand and was about to cast a spell. But at this moment, what do you want to do? Scrimgeour asked angrily. Several Aurors around him also drew their wands and pointed them at Yang Tian. Mr. Scrimgeour, I was asked by Headmaster Dumbledore to come here to help. If you don't even know the most basic respect, I don't think there is any need for me to stay here. Besides, I really hate people pointing wands at me. Yang Tian's face was grim, and there was a dangerous light in his eyes. Put down your wands, now, at this moment. It was Dumbledore who spoke. The Aurors looked at their director in embarrassment, and when they saw him waving his hand, they put away their wands reluctantly. Mr. Yang Tian, although you were invited by Dumbledore to help with the treatment, you also need to explain the situation to us, don't you? Scrimgeour said dissatisfiedly. Oh? Explain the situation? Do you understand what I said? If you can do it, then cure it. If you can't, then stop talking. At this moment, Yang Tian's mood was extremely bad. From childhood to adulthood, he hated others pointing magic wands at him the most. He turned to look at Dumbledore and said, I need quiet and personal safety for treatment. If you can't guarantee these 2 points, I think I can go back to sleep now. Don't worry, I promise that no one will disturb you again until you stop. Dumbledore said gently. After getting the assurance, Yang Tian glared at Scrimgeour fiercely again, and then picked up the ancient wand again. He first cast a cutting spell accurately, and a transparent crystal containing magic power slid out from the wound on the black-robed wizard's left wrist. The wand slid continuously again, and a fang flew out of the black-robed wizard's mouth. Next, he cut off the collar of the black-robed wizard and took out the chip from the back of his head. Yang Tian's operation stunned everyone present. But this is just the beginning. With the help of the intelligent brain simulation, the 13 ghost needles, the wood elemental spring rain technique, the dark elemental assimilation, the light elemental restraint, the method of curing Madame Zabinai is reproduced again. When the black blood was forced out and all kinds of curses dissipated from the body, turning into evil shadows and finally disappearing into the air, everyone in the room could no longer contain their excitement and exclaimed in surprise. Keep quiet, change this person's clothes, and burn all the clothes that are taken off. Yang Tian didn't say much, but turned around and walked towards the next bed. It was 4 hours later when all the black-robed wizards were cured. Yang Tian left the Ministry of Magic surrounded and praised by many bigwigs. Before leaving, Scrimgeour apologized to him for his recklessness. Everyone in the Ministry of Magic also left their contact information. After all, there are endless black-robed wizards to catch, and there will be many opportunities to deal with them in the future. Although the morning sun was bright, it could not penetrate the thick curtains of the dormitory. Yang Tian, who wanted to stay in bed, still succumbed to his biological clock. "Oh, I really don't want to get up," Yang Tian muttered softly. He was busy at the Ministry of Magic until late last night, but this didn't allow him to wake up even a minute later. After getting up and washing up helplessly, Yang Tian sat on the cloud listlessly and planned to have breakfast. But as soon as he went out, Hermione, who looked serious, stopped him. "Yang Tian, come with me quickly, everyone is waiting for you," the little girl said mysteriously in a low voice. Looking at Hermione, who had already put the hairpin on her head, Yang Tian smiled and said, "Do you like this birthday present?" "Of course, this is the best birthday present I've ever received. It can improve my learning efficiency," Hermione answered happily, but the next moment, she seemed to remember something and became worried again, pulling Yang Tian away quickly. Next to the tapestry on the 8th floor where the giant monster beat the fool Barnabas with a stick, all the friends in the study group were there. They were all waiting there with serious expressions. Only after Yang Tian arrived did their expressions ease a little. "What happened?" Yang Tian asked suspiciously. But no one answered him, and they skillfully pulled him into the room of requests. Penelope finally spoke, "I think we have discovered who attacked you with the dark holy water." "Who is it?" Yang Tian was cheered up when he heard that and asked quickly. "Professor Quirrell," said Hermione seriously. "Kilo? How can you be so sure?" Yang Tian asked hurriedly as he looked at the confident looks on his friends' faces. "Since you got into trouble, we have been using the Marauders map to monitor the movements of people in the school day and night. As a result, we found that Professor Quirrell was very suspicious. On the one hand, he was very interested in the restricted area on the right side of the corridor on the 4th floor of the school and entered it more than once. Of course, this is not the point. The most important thing is that he has been following the members of our team, seemingly looking for our new gathering point." Penelope introduced the situation in detail. "Of course, if we only rely on these clues, we are still just suspicions. But we found out from the Marauders map last night that he has been following you since you were called away by Dumbledore. There was even a period of time when you and the headmaster disappeared from the Marauders map, but he never left. He only left when you were escorted back to the Ravenclaw common room by Dumbledore. It turned out to be him," Yang Tian said in hatred. At the same time, he was certain of everything in his heart. Yes, it was either Sarek or Voldemort. Because he had ruined his plan to hunt unicorn blood, or there was something else. In short, he wanted to kill him. However, thinking about the various talismans he had asked his uncle and aunt for before leaving, Yang Tian smiled again. "Very good. It seems that some things can be put on the agenda. I will not be stupid enough to leave this time bomb until the end of the semester." For a moment, Yang Tian was filled with pride and he couldn't help but smile and said, "Now that we know where the other party came from, we have nothing to worry about. Starting today, we have to intensify our practical training. Also, keep a close eye on Professor Quirrell and see how long he stays in the restricted area on the 4th floor." Upon hearing this, the friends were also full of fighting spirit and answered in unison, "Okay." Chapter 182. The scene in the room of requirement did not cause any trouble to Yang Tian. After happily completing a day's study with his friends, Yang Tian rushed to the astronomy tower without stopping. Professor Sinistra and Stella had been waiting for a long time. Today was the first day that the two agreed to teach Yang Tian. But unlike Professor Sinistra, Stella took out a suitcase. Yang Tian couldn't help but smile when he saw this. Well, this suitcase is really a standard equipment for many wizards. In the original novel, Mad-Eye Moody was locked in a box, Newt's commander had a magic briefcase, he stole one from the Sarek Institute, and now even Stella has one. There should be some secrets in the briefcase that was taken out at this time, right? As expected, after Stella opened the suitcase, a large space appeared inside. There were many huge bookcases in the space, and nearly half of the bookcases were filled with books. Stella skillfully took out the books from the first bookcase in order and said seriously, "My teaching method may be different from others, because there are many contents in astronomy that need to be memorized by rote, so before the formal class, you have to browse all my books first. Of course, I don't require you to understand or remember all the contents, but at least you have to form a certain impression in your mind, so as to improve your learning efficiency. Yang Tian was delighted when he heard this. Isn't this hitting the back of his hand? Turning over books. How about the Hogwarts library? How about the Yang family library? Do you really think that the three-link spell of the intelligent brain, the book dance curse, and the eagle eye curse is just for show? Anyway, it's so nice. Well, it seems that you are very satisfied with this arrangement. Then it's settled. When you have finished reading all the books in my suitcase, we will start the formal teaching. Well, as for the time saved, why don't we first talk about the calculation process of the second trajectory discovered by Pony Star, how about it? Stella smiled guiltily. In an instant, Yang Tian felt that flipping through books was no longer fun. He could be sure that Stella was tricking him, but he had no evidence. Seeing Yang Tian's frustrated expression, old lady Stella actually revealed a mischievous expression. Professor Sinistra couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "This habit of the teacher is real. I also went through this when I was studying with her. During that time, I really felt hopeless. Okay, I'm fine as long as I'm not tricked." Yang Tian let out a long sigh, and then he started to deduce the second orbit of the equus. While Stella was listening to him and feeling dizzy, he put a whole bookcase of books into his white jade ring. In the next few days, Yang Tian once again entered into a busy and fulfilling study life, and watched the development of the black-robed wizard attack on Christmas with cold eyes. Let's talk about the Hogwarts Black Hand first. Except for Blaise Zabinai, who has been arrested, the remaining two known Sarek spies seem to have completely returned to their student status and are very well behaved. Especially Lee Jordan, who even stopped using Bishezai incense, and for this, the Weasley brothers complained a lot. Violet Capet played the role of a good senior to the fullest, showing her outstanding talent in all subjects. As for the mysterious Black Hand of Hufflepuff, there was no news from him anymore, and everything stopped. On the other hand, since Yang Tian went to the Ministry of Magic to help with treatment, Dumbledore seems to have become very busy, and it is difficult to see him on campus. Only the 4 deans frequently appear in the college to maintain the normal operation of Hogwarts. Yang Tian sometimes even doubted whether the old principal had forgotten his promise to him, but he didn't think so. After all, the books were there, and the monk could run away, but the temple could not, right? The wizarding world has been in turmoil recently. Without the constraints of those prohibitions, the Aurors finally opened their doors. With the help of the 2 legilimency masters, Dumbledore and Snape, they used torture, potions, and even the Imperious Curse, and finally obtained a lot of useful information. All Aurors cancelled their vacations and took turns to attack. Although most of the exposed bases were deserted, some bases that thought they were safe were still exposed. Every day there were new results, and every day there were corpses of black-robed wizards brought back. In particular, several undercover agents who had been deeply involved in the wizarding world for many years were also dug out this time. The only regret is that the Ministry of Magic never caught a single person alive. Despite this, the Ministry of Magic still gained great reputation during this period, and the atmosphere in the wizarding world seemed to have become clearer. The Daily Prophet would publish new battle reports and articles praising the Ministry's achievements every day. It seemed that in just a few days, the wizarding world had completely returned to peace. Of course, the principal's seclusion seemed to give Quirrell endless convenience, because with the help of the Marauder's map, Quirrell couldn't find the gathering place of the study group members at all. He simply gave up looking for it and instead concentrated all his energy in the restricted area on the 4th floor. But as his friends tracked the map day and night, Yang Tian discovered a big problem. Hagrid was now focusing all his attention on taking care of the leopard cubs, and he had no time to go to the bar to drink. And Mr. Voldemort, who claimed to be extremely smart, was stuck at the level of the 3-headed dog Fluvia and couldn't pass it for a long time? What's going on? Sometimes Yang Tian even wondered if he should come up with a little trick to leak the news. But Yang Tian's little idea was soon aborted because Snape appeared. Although the original plot was torn apart by Yang Tian, the head of Slytherin still suspected Quirrell without hesitation. And this time the reason was no longer because of Harry Potter, but because of him, Yang Tian. In the corridor of Hogwarts late at night, the 2 professors finally had a head-on collision. "Quirrell, haven't you figured out how to subdue Hagrid's little cutie yet?" Snape asked grimly. I didn't, don't talk nonsense. Professor Quirrell replied hurriedly. Quirrell, I'm curious, do you want to be my enemy? Snape said as he approached Professor Quirrell. I don't know what you're talking about. Professor Quirrell retreated fearfully and answered again. No, Quirrell, you know exactly what I mean, don't you? Snape questioned, what a well thought out little trick. Think of all the troubles that come with it. Trolls? Or dark holy water? What's next? I can't wait. But, I really don't understand what you mean. No, you understand very well. Snape interrupted Quirrell's defense and continued, I just want to say that my patience is limited, and I don't have much time to give you consideration. After you think it over and decide who you will be loyal to, we will talk again. After that, he threw away his wizard robes and strode away. This thrilling performance attracted many spectators, including Harry wearing the invisibility cloak, Yang Tian, Hannah, and Neville who cast a high-end disillusionment spell. Well, Quirrell being watched closely by Professor Snape? We'll have to wait for the news to be revealed. Chapter 183. Saturday was supposed to be the day for the Transfiguration Club to gather, but Professor McGonagall rarely suspended the gathering and instead called Yang Tian into her office alone. Looking at Professor McGonagall, whose face was full of excitement yet mysterious, Yang Tian was indeed a little confused. What good thing had happened to him? Professor McGonagall didn't let Yang Tian guess for too long, and got straight to the point. Yang Tian, do you still remember your improved transfiguration of the fire-breathing fish? I have made another important discovery. Major discovery. Yang Tian instinctively doubted it. He didn't know how the modified fire-breathing fish transformation performed by others was, but the transformation performed by himself with the help of the lifeline was infinitely close to the real fire-breathing fish. Of course, it was only infinitely close. Let's not discuss those neurological reactions. At the very least, the flames of a real fire-breathing fish are about 3 meters, while the fire-breathing fish transformed by Yang Tian can only reach a distance of 1.5 meters at most. But in Yang Tian's opinion, this is enough. After all, it is much better than the magical creatures that are only good for show after transformation. The magical creatures he transformed into do not have the abilities that real magical creatures should have. Professor McGonagall did not explain, but quickly cast a spell using the new method she had mastered, turning a piece of parchment into a fire-breathing fish. Then she tapped the fish tank and said excitedly, Yang, let me show you the difference. But in the next moment, Yang Tian was stunned. He suddenly exclaimed, the flames of this fire-breathing fish can actually be sprayed 2 meters away? How is it possible? It's no wonder Yang Tian was so excited. Professor McGonagall didn't master the general lifeline, but the fire-breathing fish he transformed out of it actually surpassed the fire-breathing fish he transformed with the general lifeline. It must be said that this would definitely be a major discovery. Professor McGonagall was also very excited when he heard it. It's blood. Yang Tian, it's blood. Simulating the blood of a real fire-breathing fish, although it should be a trivial matter in the original transfiguration, but in the micro-transfiguration, it is undoubtedly very important. This may be the power of blood. Blood, blood curse, blood inheritance, power of blood. These words awakened the dreamer. Yes. I am so stupid. Bloodline is bloodline, and it can only be bloodline. Yang Tian was inexplicably excited. He quickly gave the intelligent computer an order in his mind, Thread 3, pause the deduction of the spell, and deduce the blood of the fire-breathing fish. Deduce the transformation process of the fire-breathing fish's generalized bloodline. I thought I would have to wait for a while, but unexpectedly, the cold mechanical voice of the intelligent computer sounded instantly. The fire-breathing fish blood sample data and simulation method have been stored in the database. Do you want to receive it? Received. Yang Tian replied excitedly. In an instant, relevant information about the fire-breathing fish's bloodline gushed out from the intelligent brain and merged with Yang Tian's memory. Yang Tian pondered for a moment, then pulled out his ancient magic wand and began to cast a spell on a piece of parchment. His movements were gentle and agile, but full of endless magic power. Soon, a fire-breathing fish appeared in the experimental fish tank, which seemed to be no different from the one that Professor McGonagall had transformed. No, it seemed very different. As the fire-breathing fish stayed in the water longer and longer, its nearly transparent body gradually began to glow blue as the blood flowed, illuminating the surrounding environment. So that's it. Yang Tian was shocked. He had seen the fire-breathing fish in this state before, but most of them were before the fire-breathing fish. So he always thought it was just a precursor to the fire-breathing fish. Now it seems that it is not, this is another ability related to blood. Wow, so beautiful! Professor McGonagall asked in amazement, how did you do that? It's also blood, Professor. Maybe your research on the blood of fire-breathing fish is limited to one or two, so it has a stronger individuality. I have been studying fire-breathing fish for a long time, and blood is also involved, so there are stronger commonalities. Yang Tian explained. Yes, it seems that I still need to study it in depth, otherwise I will only stay on the surface. Professor McGonagall fell into deep thought. Yang Tian, who had just been enlightened, had already drifted away in his thoughts. He continued to give orders to the master, deducing the blood of the evil bird. Deducing the transformation process of the evil bird's general bloodline. The intelligent brain responded just as quickly, but the content surprised Yang Tian. The database stores multiple blood sample data and simulation methods related to the evil bird. Do you want to receive it? Receive. Although he was quite confused, Yang Tian still gave the order. The next moment, when the relevant information about the evil bird bloodline merged with Yang Tian's memory, he finally understood the meaning of the intelligent brain and the research direction of the Sarek Research Institute. At this moment, the blood of the evil bird in his mind was divided into three categories. One is the normal bloodline information of the evil bird. The second is the blood of the redeveloped Oppo bird, such as the blood of the Oppo bird whose singing increases the rate of losing sanity by 30%, the blood of the Oppo bird whose singing is powerful enough to kill people, the blood of the creature that is a fusion of the Oppo bird and a bat. The third is to trace the blood of the evil bird, such as purifying the blood of multiple generations of evil birds and then inferring the first generation blood and the second generation blood. Yang Tian couldn't imagine that the research institute had so many research results. However, he didn't plan to try all of them for the time being, but chose the normal evil bird bloodline data for the experiment. As the ancient magic wand was waved, another piece of parchment transformed into an evil bird. As soon as the evil bird appeared on the desk, it flapped its wings and flew to the windowsill, and then began to sing. The loud singing made Professor McGonagall and Yang Tian feel dizzy. Success, ha ha ha! Finally succeeded. The problem that had troubled him for so long was finally solved, and Yang Tian couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then, he sank into endless longing. It turned out that the power of blood was like this. He had endless blood data from the laboratory. Maybe it was really time to study the subject of blood. But when Yang Tian was dreaming, Professor McGonagall tapped Yang Tian hard with the bottom of her wand and said, "Change it back quickly. Do you want both of us to lose our minds?" Yang Tian was startled and quickly waved the ancient magic wand, and the evil bird immediately turned back into a piece of parchment. Yang Tian, why don't the restoration spell and vanishing spell I cast just now work on the evil bird you transformed into? Professor McGonagall asked immediately after getting rid of the trouble of the evil bird's singing, her tone showing 7 parts of confusion and 3 parts of unwillingness. Yang Tian thought for a moment and said, "This evil bird was transformed by combining the special texture points I studied with the blood you studied. I think these strange things are relatively subtle, and you don't understand the principles behind them, so the traditional recovery spell or vanishing spell can't work." Looking at Professor McGonagall who was still frowning in thought, Yang Tian continued, "You can try to ask other professors to restore your fire-breathing fish, but I guess that's difficult to achieve, right?" Professor McGonagall's eyes lit up when she heard this, and she quickly asked, "Can you restore my fire-breathing fish?" Yang Tian was stunned for a moment, and said embarrassedly, "I think it should be possible. Although your way is different from mine, I seem to be able to fully understand the transformation of your fire-breathing fish." Well, Professor McGonagall's good mood was gone in an instant. She was so angry, wasn't she? At this moment, she was as stubborn as a child. Yang Tian was also an expert at observing people's expressions. Seeing this, he immediately comforted her, "Professor McGonagall, don't be discouraged. I am very familiar with this fire-breathing fish. After all, I have been studying it since I was a child. If you find out the special features of other magical animals and then transform them, I will not be able to recover." Professor McGonagall suddenly realized what was going on when she heard this. That's right, comparing the other person's strengths with her own weaknesses, am I crazy? With this thought, Professor McGonagall finally regained her confidence and said, "It seems that we can work together to publish a paper again. I will write about the effect of blood on transfiguration." And you will write about the improved transfiguration of the evil bird. By the way, although I have said it many times, I still want to say it again, your future must be immeasurable. Chapter 184. In the following week, Yang Tian's life became busy again. He had to go to classes, sweep books, go to the astronomy tower, Professor McGonagall's office, the room of requirement. It was like working non-stop. He was even a little overwhelmed. Fortunately, after so much hard work, the task of sweeping books was finally completed. Late at night at Hogwarts, in the astronomy tower, Stella and Professor Sinistra looked at Yang Tian in shock. So many books, have you really read them all? Stella was struggling to speak. Of course, Stella. You should believe in my ability, and there is no need for me to lie about such a small matter. Yang Tian said with a smile. Of course I believe it, but it's just too hard to accept. I remember that Aurora spent nearly a year reading these books. Stella continued. However, she quickly adjusted herself and said, Okay, since you have completed my task, we will officially start teaching from today. Today our course content is to study the application of stars. Yang Tian was puzzled when he heard this. He couldn't help but ask, aren't we going to continue learning the constellation stargazing method today? I have only learned the Equus constellation in this course. Stella smiled bitterly and said, I must explain this to you. You have read so many books and you should have discovered that there are very few records of constellation stargazing. Moreover, they are all records of single energy running trajectories like the Equus. Of course, this is not the main problem. The main problem is that it is still winter and in the UK. Looking at Yang Tian, who looked even more puzzled, Stella continued to explain, the remaining constellations in our inheritance that can be used for constellation stargazing cannot be seen at this time and place. Of course, if you are willing to travel around the world with me, I can introduce you to a few more constellations in the inheritance. Yang Tian suddenly understood what was going on, but his face fell instantly. Well, I didn't have any advantage in terms of timing or location. I thought that if that was the case, I might as well follow the instructions and learn how to use the stars. But Yang Tian changed his mind and asked unwillingly, Stella, can you introduce me to a constellation that is not in the inheritance but can be observed in the UK all year round? I want to try to find some clues about the energy trajectory of this constellation. Seeing that Yang Tian was so eager to learn, Stella was very pleased. She hesitated for a moment and said, if you want to talk about a constellation that can be seen all year round, it must be Cassiopeia. As he spoke, he gave Yang Tian a detailed introduction to the constellation Cassiopeia, and after some deduction, he guided Yang Tian to find its approximate location. After getting the information he wanted to know, Yang Tian finally felt relieved and listened to Stella talking about the application of the stars. I believe you must have seen this statement in books. The initial visualization of the stars through astrology is only the first step of astrology. What is more important is the accumulation over the years. Stella's voice suddenly became ethereal, just like Professor Sinistra. Yes, that's right. When you complete your initial visualization of a star, you will naturally develop a bond with it. It will protect you in the starry sky, give you strength, and give you inspiration. But in its initial state, this bond is not stable, it comes and goes, intermittently. As awakened ones, what we have to do is to try our best to turn this bond from being intermittent to a long-term companion. As she spoke, Stella closed her eyes and stood still. After a moment, a magical scene happened. With Stella as the center, a ray of light flashed, and 7 winding silk-like trajectories crossed the starry sky, closely connecting the distant stars with her. At that moment, she seemed to have become the darling under the stars. Seeing this, Yang Tian was shocked. After reading so many books, Yang Tian had a wealth of theoretical knowledge, but what he lacked was practice. Stella's behavior undoubtedly closely connected theory and practice. So, the next moment, Yang Tian seemed to have realized something and closed his eyes tightly, feeling the stars that had formed a bond with him. Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, one by one, the stars revealed their positions. But when he followed them, the stars fled away like children, as if playing hide and seek with him. Sometimes they appeared to provoke, sometimes they fled. At the same time, they were also wantonly showing their own personalities, the heat of fire, the softness of water, the sharpness of gold, the vitality of wood. Yang Tian was completely immersed in enlightenment. As time goes by, the traces become clearer and more solid. Stella and Professor Sinistra were immediately delighted. He was indeed a genius. He succeeded in one try. But the next moment they were numb. However, the originally solidified silk thread suddenly paused, and another silk thread with a completely different trajectory was separated. The next moment, the third, fourth, fifth, countless silk threads gradually solidified. Moreover, the silk threads with the same properties were finally tied into a bundle. The whole 8 bundles were like real entities, which was extremely spectacular. The two ladies were really confused this time. Could the star bond also have such complicated changes? But they soon understood. Isn't the bond an extension of the initial visualization? Every energy trajectory should have its own bond, which is reasonable. Stella and Professor Sinistra are still doing. But Yang Tian still hadn't woken up from his comprehension. When the 8 beams of light were completely formed, he seemed to understand their inner voices. It was a messy message. Mars, jungle, blood, hissing sounds. Mercury, the bleak night will eventually write a sad story. Venus, in the land where the Dark Lord once hid. Jupiter, the wolves licking their wounds bared their fangs again. Saturn, hot August will be a node where fate will collide fiercely. Uranus, it is the day of redemption for the poor souls. Neptune, or maybe it's a carnival for eaters. Equinox, the alien that can change the situation finally appears. At this moment, Yang Tian's eyes suddenly became deep, his body trembled uncontrollably, and a hoarse and low voice that seemed to come from the depths of his throat came out of his mouth, the wolves licking their wounds bared their fangs again. In the land where the Dark Lord once hid. The aliens that could change the situation finally appeared. The bleak night will eventually write a sad story. Is it the day of redemption for the poor souls? Or is it a carnival for the eaters? The hot August will become the node where fate collides fiercely. At this moment, how could the two women who were originally ecstatic have any happiness at all? They looked at Yang Tian with a serious expression, but Yang Tian, who had just woken up, was also looking at them with horror. They looked at each other in silence. Chapter 185. In the headmaster's office at Hogwarts Castle, Dumbledore poured coffee for the 3 uninvited guests. Tell me, my dear Stella, what important matter could make you, who is used to seeing all kinds of things, so nervous? Dumbledore joked. Dumbledore, I hope you can face this problem squarely. It is very likely to affect the future direction of the entire wizarding world. Stella said solemnly. Seeing that she was so serious, Dumbledore finally put away his joking heart and listened carefully, and Stella also told the cause and effect of Yang Tianxing's prophecy. Okay, Stella. I'm not doubting anything, but are you really sure that an 11-year-old first-year wizard who has never taken a divination class can make predictions? After listening to the whole process, Dumbledore felt it was ridiculous. Dumbledore, I've told you long ago that Yang Tian is a genius in astronomy. Otherwise, do you think I would stay in Hogwarts? Stella said somewhat dissatisfiedly, astronomical divination is fundamentally different from divination in divination class. It is a revelation and gift from the stars. This has nothing to do with your age and knowledge, but it has to do with your bond and attraction with the stars. Moreover, all the necessary factors to trigger the prophecy are in place, the various visions during the prophecy are also perfect. Therefore, this is absolutely a true star prophecy. Stella's words almost left Dumbledore speechless, but he still asked, will the prophecy be inaccurate? I'm sorry to tell you, no. I've already said that star prophecy is different from ordinary divination. Yang Tian's bond with the stars is too deep, even surpassing many predecessors. Moreover, this kind of prophecy that seems to be self-feeding from the stars is unlikely to deviate. It will give you inspiration and place you at a crossroads in life. You make choices, you struggle, and perhaps you find a new way out in the struggle, or perhaps that is the path of destiny. But in any case, the scenes and the language will be presented one by one. Do you know, Dumbledore? This has even surpassed the boundaries of the awakened who cannot be predicted, because it is a gift from the stars. Didn't Professor Trelawney have a similar prophetic state? At the end, Stella's tone was already excited and a little crazy. That's right, just like when I first taught Yang Tian astronomy, he first formed a bond with Mars and received a gift. The information he received at the time was, blood, forest, wild laughter. But his bond was too shallow at the time, and the information he received was too limited, so we had no way of judging the specific situation. But what I want to say is that not long after, Yang Tian was attacked by a black-robed wizard in the Forbidden Forest. Doesn't this explain the problem? Professor Sinistra also explained seriously. There's such a thing? Is that what you said in the letter, that the child awakened in his first astronomy class? Stella suddenly turned into a curious baby. Yes, teacher. I told you that he fell into a coma at the time due to the huge amount of awakening energy. We talked about this topic in the ward after Yang Tian woke up the next morning. Dumbledore suddenly felt that his understanding of Yang Tian was still too shallow. It turned out that so many things had happened in the middle. He finally put away his cynical expression and thought, this prophecy seems to be complete, but there are a few things that are puzzling. Who are the wolves licking their wounds? And where is the place where the Dark Lord once hid? What is the alien that can change the situation? There are too many things that are puzzling. That's why it's called a prophecy. We must investigate it as soon as possible, Dumbledore. Stella said dissatisfiedly. I have a small idea. Yang Tian said in a deep voice, at present, there are only two groups of people who can be called wolves licking their wounds. Either the Dark Lord's Death Eaters, or the current evil organization. So the direction of the investigation should focus on these two parties. Yang Tian, who was familiar with the original novel, knew that the Dark Lord did not meet the requirements at all. The wolf pack must be Saruk. And the so-called hiding place of the Dark Lord must be Albania. But what could he say? Complete exposure? It didn't make sense at all. But he couldn't answer the question of how he got this information. So, he could only give a slight hint. Upon hearing this, Dumbledore nodded solemnly and said, yes, I will report this matter to the Ministry of Magic immediately. Looking at Stella, who was about to refute, Dumbledore quickly added, of course, the prophecy will be issued in your name, Stella. I believe this will greatly increase its credibility. Let's see how the Ministry of Magic handles it before making a decision. After all, Hogwarts is just a school, and there are many things that are not suitable for us to directly intervene in. Besides, their recent performance is not bad, isn't it? I think Minister Fudge is still trustworthy. Stella and Professor Sinistra looked at each other after hearing this, but didn't say another word. Although he seemed serious, how could they not understand the evasion? At this moment, Yang Tian also felt a sense of powerlessness. The recent smooth sailing made the old principal lower his vigilance rating for Saruk. It seems that everything still needs to be pushed forward by himself in secret. The lobbying was fruitless, and the three people who came out of the principal's office looked listless. They soon split up and left. After returning to the astronomy tower, Stella quickly got rid of her lost mood. She immediately said, Aurora, cheer up. Isn't it normal that star prophecies are not taken seriously? Astronomy has declined, this is a fact. Especially this prophecy comes from an 11-year-old child. Professor Sinistra said helplessly, I understand, teacher, but this is likely to cause an immeasurable disaster, isn't it? Of course, this is also the punishment that those who blasphemed the star revelation deserve. However, we still have time. Maybe by then, everything will be different. Stella continued to comfort him. Well, I hope we won't be bitten back by arrogance and prejudice. Sinistra said helplessly. Relax, kid. In fact, we should pay more attention to Yang Tian's miraculous performance. I think the path he is taking now is the path of inheritance of ancient astronomy. Moreover, he can bring me surprises every time. I think that only by putting the chips on him can we see the complete inheritance come back to the world. Stella seemed to be full of fighting spirit at this time, so, I decided. Write to other old friends in the association to see if they are interested in gathering together to summarize and study the development of astronomy. At the same time, we can also witness the growth of this child and the advent of miracles together. Teacher, are you trying to build momentum for Yang Tian? Sinistra immediately understood the key. That's right. Although most of us are dying, it doesn't mean that our hopes can be suppressed indefinitely. We old guys at least have our own reputation and connections in our respective circles. I believe there will be people willing to protect this child. As Stella explained, she silently pulled out the parchment and began writing furiously. On the other hand, Yang Tian could not calm down for a long time after returning to the dormitory. Whenever he thought of the forest in Albania, his heart was throbbing. If the prophecy came true, there would be something there that would allow Saruk to reach a higher level. How would he, his family, and his friends face such a powerful enemy? At the same time, Yang Tian was also confused. If they were just looking for treasures, why was the predicted duel about half a year later? What tricks was Saruk playing? If he sent someone to enter the venue in advance, could he nip everything in the bud? Once this idea came to him, he could no longer hold it back. No matter what, he had to inform everyone of what happened today. Moreover, since Sarek was about to take action again, Voldemort in Hogwarts had to be removed as soon as possible, and he couldn't be given any opportunity to cause trouble. After carefully recalling the plot of the original novel and making careful plans, Yang Tian finally took out the parchment and described the whole thing in detail, including his plan. There were 3 copies of this letter, one for his parents and grandparents, one for the Yang family stationed in Hogsmeade, and one directly for Madame Zabanai. After a long time, Meng Meng Jiao spread her wings and flew up, quickly disappearing into the night. Chapter 186. The Hog's Head Inn in Hogsmeade. This is the 22nd day that Quirrell, who has wrapped himself up tightly, has tried his luck here. However, as expected, Hagrid still did not show up. Quirrell really couldn't imagine what kind of power could make a guy who loves alcohol not come to the pub for nearly a month. Just as the disappointed Quirrell was about to get up to pay the bill, he accidentally overheard the conversation between 2 drunks at the next table. "How long has it been since Hagrid came?" one of them asked unconsciously. "It's been a long time, who knows?" "Carter, why did you suddenly mention him?" another person asked puzzledly. "Haha, Jeff, you may not know. This big guy is a rare master at adjusting the atmosphere. He doesn't even need to prepare a draft when he brags." Carter laughed. "Is it true? What did he say?" Jeff was very curious. "Wow, that's a lot. He said he had a friend with an 8-eyed spider, and he also said he had a pet that was a 3-headed dog, ha ha ha." Carter laughed as he spoke, looking so happy. "Is this true? Is this guy so unreliable? They are all magical animals known for their ferocity and cold-bloodedness." Jeff laughed jokingly. "Who said it wasn't true?" In order to increase credibility, he even made up the weaknesses of the 3-headed dog. Ha ha ha. Carter continued. "Oh, the weakness of the 3-headed dog? Then I really want to learn more about it. Tell me quickly." Jeff's curiosity was aroused. "That's not possible, brother. I have an agreement with him that I cannot reveal these things to anyone, otherwise he will never tell me these interesting stories again." Carter had a mysterious expression. "Come on, don't keep me in suspense. Even if you tell me, that big idiot doesn't know either." Jeff said dissatisfiedly. "Really? Don't I know you big mouths? Every one of you in the bar, if I tell you today, everyone in Hogsmeade will know it tomorrow." Carter said unmoved. After that, no matter how much Jeff pestered him, Carter refused to say another word. This made Quirrell and Voldemort on the back of his head very depressed. They were just one step away from getting the information they had always dreamed of. However, Quirrell was not panicked at all. As long as the drunkard left the bar, with just a little imperious curse, he would know everything. But at this moment, the drunk Carter spoke again. "Are those bastards coming? If not, I will leave with those Aurors from the Ministry of Magic." As he said that, he pointed to a few people in the corner of the bar. Then he lowered his voice and continued, "You know how violent those black-robed wizards were before. Although I don't know where they are hiding now, we should always be prepared, right? If we can travel with the Aurors, we won't have to be afraid of anything." Hearing this, Jeff enviously said, "Yeah, you are pretty rich now, hooking up with a big shot. This trip will take a year, right? At least a year. If it develops really well, maybe longer." Carter became more and more proud. "So you should meet those guys. After all, you are your best friends. Everyone will rely on you in the future." Jeff advised. "Well, it's a farewell drink after all, so let's wait another half an hour. If they don't come, don't blame me." Carter finally agreed. But Quirrell was getting a little anxious. This guy was leaving in half an hour? And there were Aurors accompanying him? Although he was not afraid of these people, he would never allow some unnecessary unexpected situations to affect his overall plan. After thinking it over, Chi Luo came to the next table and said, "Hey, friend, I want to make a deal with you." Carter was stunned, but asked cautiously, "Who are you? I don't seem to know you." Quirrell took out a small bag of gold galleons and shook it, then said, "Don't we know each other now? Okay, tell me what your deal is." Although Carter was tempted by the sound of the gold galleons hitting his wallet, he still had a deep sense of vigilance in his eyes. While he was talking, he kept looking at the auras in the corner. Don't be nervous, my friend, let's get straight to the point. It's actually quite funny. I was just attracted by the little story you just told, and I wanted to satisfy my curiosity. What weakness of the three-headed dog did the big fool you mentioned say? Quirrell said with a smile. Wow, you must have heard it just now. I won't tell anyone about it. I am a man of my word, Carter replied. To hell with the so-called credibility, ha ha ha, it's just that the other party paid too low a stake. I believe you are a smart man. Quirrell tempted. Too low? Then how much can you give? Carter sneered. How about 1,000 gold galleons? Quirrell offered. Haha, who are you looking down on? I'm going to be rich soon, will I ruin my reputation because of this little money? Carter said dissatisfiedly. Isn't this enough for an adult wizard to spend for at least a year? I advise you not to be greedy. Quirrell's eyes turned cold. But Carter obviously didn't buy it. He didn't even say a word and just wanted to get up and leave. Quirrell panicked, he felt Voldemort's anger coming from behind his head. No, brother, it's just a joke. I just think, okay, you win. Here, 2,000 gold galleons. Seeing that Carter still wanted to turn around, he quickly said, of course, there's also this. As he said that, he carefully opened a snakeskin bag, revealing a corner of it. Carter was shocked when he saw the contents of the snakeskin bag, but then he became greedy. He asked cautiously, what is this? It's exactly what you were thinking of, my friend. Quirrell gave an affirmative answer, and then he asked, how about it? The price is not low, is it? Of course, sir, you are so generous. Carter was ecstatic at this time, and he reached out directly and wanted to take the bag. Seeing this, Chiluo took back the snakeskin bag directly. I have expressed my sincerity, what about you? How can I believe that what you said is not a lie? Do I need to do this? Just to lie to a fool's drunken talk? Kurt said impatiently. But the next moment, he suddenly became alert and said calmly, sorry, sir, I really can't prove anything. If you feel that my words are unbelievable, then cancel this deal. After that, he directly distanced himself from Quirrell. Don't be like that, I'm just asking. Quirrell explained, looking directly into the other's eyes. But the next moment, he groaned, and Voldemort's voice appeared in his mind, asshole, this bastard has something on him that can prevent legilimency. Seeing this, Carter felt something was wrong and turned around to leave. Quirrell was really anxious now. He grabbed the other person and said, okay, friend. This is yours. Now please satisfy my curiosity. As he said that, he stuffed a small bag of gold galleons and a snakeskin bag directly into Carter's arms. Carter smiled with satisfaction when he saw this. After carefully checking and putting everything away, he whispered mysteriously, that big fool actually said that the three-headed dog would fall asleep when it heard music, ha 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 ha. Upon hearing this, Chiluo's eyes turned extremely cold. Friend, I have shown enough sincerity, but you actually lied to me in such a clumsy way. Do you think I am easy to bully? The drunk man immediately said seriously, I didn't believe it at the time. But Hagrid said that he raised this three-headed dog since it was a child. When it was a child, Hagrid always used music to coax it to sleep. Over time, it developed this habit. Quirrell finally calmed down, and Voldemort in his mind also fell into deep thought. They didn't even notice when the two drunks and the aura in the corner left the bar. Chapter 187. The sky is still the same sky, and the city is still the same city. After the conversation in the principal's office that night, Yang Tian's prediction did not cause even the slightest ripple in Hogwarts or even in the wizarding world. The entire campus is still peaceful and tranquil, and even with the Ministry of Magic's publicity of the victory, the haze brought by the evil organization has dissipated. The wizarding world seems to have returned to its original tranquility and boredom. But after just a few days of living like this, a series of heavy news once again caused a sensation in the wizarding world. Stella Herschel, the famous British ancient astronomer, appeared at Hogwarts. Mr. Castor Cassini, the famous French ancient astronomer, appeared at Hogwarts. The famous German ancient astronomer Arthur Struve appeared at Hogwarts. The latest news in the Daily Prophet even claimed that the academic organization Awakener Forum will establish an ancient astronomy research group in Hogwarts, and the 3 experts will be stationed in Hogwarts and participate in the research of the research group throughout the process. When this news came out, not only the British wizarding world, but the entire Western wizarding world was shocked. It was nothing else. 3 of the only 4 remaining ancient astronomy masters in the Western wizarding world gathered together to study ancient astronomy topics. Is there anything more shocking than this? You know, there are too many historical documents in the wizarding world that record the glory and strength of the ancient awakeners. Although ancient astronomy is declining in the wizarding world today due to the interruption of inheritance, this does not affect the status of this subject in the eyes of knowledgeable people. Even if it relies on the few remaining inheritances, if you have learned something, your strength is still much stronger than that of ordinary wizards. Because of this, many experts and scholars who knew the inside story, and even ancient astronomy enthusiasts, set out and rushed to Hogwarts. In the headmaster's office at Hogwarts. Dumbledore, are we really not going to get the situation under control a little? According to the current trend, the astronomy tower will be overcrowded in a few days. I heard that ancient astronomers from all over the world are gathering at Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall asked with a little concern. Minerva, let Stella and the others handle these matters. I believe that with the status they hold in the hearts of these fanatics, they will be able to solve this problem very well. Moreover, the sudden rise of ancient astronomy will also greatly enhance the reputation of Hogwarts. Dumbledore comforted. What about Yang Tian? Professor McGonagall did not argue, but directly asked her main request. At this time, her tone was full of anger. Even if they are famous, they can't take up all of Yang Tian's spare time? You know, Yang Tian's specialty is transfiguration. He has opened a door for transfiguration, but now he doesn't even have time to write a new academic paper. I know, Minerva. This child's talent in transfiguration is unquestionable, and I've read his thesis. The improvement of transfiguration on the fire-breathing fish is also very shocking. But if you say that his specialty is only transfiguration, I don't think Professor Sprout and Professor Sinister will agree. Moreover, I think the situation of taking up too much of Yang Tian's spare time must be temporary. After all, these experts have just arrived, and I think we still have to accommodate them. That's right, Yang Tian was in the astronomy tower at this time. In addition to Sinistra, Stella, Mr. Cassini, and Mr. Truvi, the students of these experts also followed him. Yang Tian really didn't expect that Stella would make such a big scene. For several days, except for classes, he was firmly tied to the astronomical tower. And all the scholars and experts who had heard Yang Tian's deduction of the trajectory of the constellations were delighted and deeply immersed in it. Of course, Yang Tian did not gain nothing. While explaining, these experts also took out their own exclusive books on ancient astronomy. So, his book scanning work could continue. This made Yang Tian feel a mixture of pain and joy. And these experts also agreed that after Yang Tian finished reading all the books, they would teach Yang Tian ancient astronomy together with Stella. Yang Tian was very happy to learn from the strengths of so many schools. After finishing the trip to the astronomy tower, Yang Tian, with a heavy heart, was blocked by his friends on the way back to the common room and was forcibly dragged into the room of requirement. Yang Tian, what's wrong with you these days? You always look like you are worried about something. Hermione asked first. That's right, don't you consider us your friends anymore? If you have something to say, just speak up and we can discuss it together. The friends all echoed. Yang Tian felt helpless and warm-hearted. These friends knew him too well and would notice any slight abnormality. It is indeed a big event, but I don't know how to explain it. Alas, the source of all this comes from a prophecy of mine. After thinking it over, Yang Tian told his friends in detail the process of studying ancient astronomy and the prophecies. Oh my god, Yang Tian, are you so good already? Divination class, I remember it is a 3rd grade course, right? You can do it now. Zhang Qiu exclaimed. I said, this is just an application of astronomy. It is very different from divination class. Yang Tian explained. It turns out that astronomy is so amazing. No wonder it is a core course, Padma exclaimed. No, haven't we gone off the topic of discussion? Shouldn't we be discussing the crisis of the prophecy itself? Penelope was speechless. Did Dumbledore really just report the matter to the Ministry of Magic? Didn't he ever think of investigating it himself? Hermione asked in disbelief. Yes, maybe it's because I'm too young, so he didn't take this prophecy seriously. Yang Tian sighed helplessly. We should try to convince him. Hermione continued unwillingly. Hermione, it's not that I don't want to, but even Stella and Professor Sinistra's strenuous persuasion is useless. What can we do? Yang Tian asked back. Hermione was completely speechless, but she could not hide the disappointment in her eyes no matter what. I think we can write a letter to Madame Zabanai about this matter. She will definitely take it seriously. Parvati said excitedly, I firmly believe that she is absolutely the most sincere one when it comes to dealing with the black-robed wizard. Yes, that's a good idea. We will write a letter and explain everything to Mrs. Zabanai in detail. Hannah agreed immediately. The eyes of the other friends also lit up immediately. Yang Tian secretly laughed when he saw this. Mrs. Zabanai got the news much earlier than you. Spreading the news is indeed a good idea, but we must also pay attention to improving our own combat effectiveness. According to the prophecy, it is likely to turn into a disaster, and we must at least have the ability to protect ourselves. Penelope said earnestly. Yes, we should indeed improve our strength, but will such simple training really be useful? Neville asked uncertainly. I do have a set of training methods that can quickly improve my strength. However, some of them are too cruel. Yang Tian said uncertainly. Have you ever trained like this? Hermione asked. Of course, I received this kind of training when I was about 6 or 7 years old, Yang Tian recalled. 6, 7 years old. Hermione was furious. You told us that the training you participated in when you were 6 or 7 years old was cruel. Who are you looking down on? The rest of the friends were even more indignant, and expressed their dissatisfaction by shouting. Okay, I didn't force you. If you can't hold on, just give up on your own. Yang Tian also got angry. So, today, in the room of requirement, the Nightmare Organization Universal Training was presented to the friends for the first time. Late that night, Yang Tian also received a letter from Mr. Li. The Pig's Head bar plan was successfully completed, the message had been delivered, the goods had arrived, and they could be picked up at any time. Chapter 188. Since the Nightmare Organization General Training that night, Yang Tian has been very busy. Professor McGonagall, Professor Sprout, and the Ancient Astronomy Group led by Professor Sinistra have started a massive and long-lasting recruitment mode. Yang Tian, when will the academic paper Improvements on the Transfiguration of the Evil Bird be completed? My paper In-Depth Study of Transfiguration and Bloodline is about to be finished, so you have to hurry up. It is best for our papers to be published one after another, so that we can create linkage and cause a sensation. Professor McGonagall said seriously. You should spend more time on Transfiguration, you know? Now many parents of preschool wizards have asked me about the admission rules of Hogwarts. They are all here because of the new changes in Transfiguration. Yang Tian, do you have any new ideas in herbal medicine recently? The method of controlling the screams of Mandrake that you mentioned after class last time is worth further study. According to your theory, this can not only reduce the risk of cultivators being attacked, but also minimize the extra loss of Mandrake caused by crying and improve growth efficiency. Professor Sprout said happily, let's materialize this theory as soon as possible. How about it, little guy? How many of those astronomy books have you finished reading? We old bones are all waiting to explore the starry sky with you. The cheerful Stella urged again, you know, so many people have gathered together because of you. So, you have to speed up the progress appropriately. Well, what else can Yang Tian say? These are all the opinions of the professors who are close to him. Roll up your sleeves and work hard. But Yang Tian's idea was good, but his friends were making trouble again. For these little wizards whose bodies had not been strengthened by elements, the Nightmare Universal Training method was a bit cruel. Physical training, strength training, speed training, anti-strike training, fighting training, spell release training, spell release rate training, spell release moving target training, each individual training seemed to squeeze the potential of these little guys and challenge their fragile nerves. They really couldn't believe that a 6 or 7-year-old child could complete such a heavy training task. But when Yang Tian demonstrated and completed all the items meticulously without any rest in between, the little friends fell silent collectively. They began to train frantically, shedding tears, sweat, and blood. No one voluntarily quit. But the biggest problem also emerged, the injury rate was too high. Yang Tian wanted to reduce the difficulty appropriately, but was sternly rejected by his friends. The main point is that if you can do it, I can do it too. Forced to do so, Yang Tian finally became a field doctor, trying his best to protect the growth of his friends. But Yang Tian really wanted to say, if it weren't for the tight thread of his brain, he would have to invent some better first aid spells. The Hogwarts campus was bustling with activity, but Professor Quirrell was not idle either. After the trip to the Hog's Head, his treasure hunt finally made some progress. According to the Marauder's map, he was spending more and more time in the restricted area on the 4th floor, and his position was constantly moving forward. To this end, Yang Tian even sneaked into the restricted area. With the help of a small music box, Yang Tian sent some of his reconnaissance troops into the secret passage. He needed to keep an eye on Professor Quirrell's latest progress. Just when Yang Tian focused all his attention on Professor Quirrell, Harry and Ron, who had been seriously neglected, also found an extremely important clue. Although Harry did not activate the Quidditch line because of Yang Tian's intrusion, many things still happened to him since the beginning of the school year. For example, he was tricked by Draco into the trophy display room in the name of a late-night duel, and he accidentally broke into the restricted area on the right side of the 4th floor under Filch's relentless pursuit. They were supposed to be isolated outside the door that Hermione opened in the original book, and then captured by Filch, but for some reason, the door opened automatically. They also saw the drooling three-headed dog as they wished, and escaped after a desperate run and returned to their dormitory. Of course, after Halloween, they also accidentally discovered Snape's leg injury. So, without a doubt, they locked their suspicion on Snape. Although they didn't know what this guy was going to do, it was definitely not a good thing. Also because Harry heard Snape and Quirrell mention trolls in their conversation, Ron naturally put a new hat on Yang Tian, Snape's accomplice and someone with ulterior motives. Well, Harry was speechless about this. He also didn't know how Ron could organically connect Snape and Yang Tian and believe it. However, these are no longer that important. For Harry, the most important thing at the moment is to figure out Snape's conspiracy, while Ron's goal is to figure out the conspiracy between Snape and Yang Tian. Therefore, the two reached a consensus on Snape's conspiracy. The problem is that, although the invisibility cloak received as a Christmas gift makes nighttime wandering and tracking much easier for Harry, his relatively simple mind, together with Ron's equally dull mind, naturally make it impossible for them to come up with any effective countermeasures. Seeing that there has been no significant progress in tracking down Snape, the two men were frustrated and bored. After discussion, they decided to go to Hagrid's hut to sit and relax the tension caused by the unsuccessful Christmas visit. Although Hagrid was somewhat disgusted with this little guy named Ron, he did not turn them away. He still invited the two into the house and served them a cup of tea. After holding the tea in their hands and exchanging a few words, the two sides had to fall into silence. It can be seen that both Hagrid, Harry and Ron tried to find some topics that both parties were interested in. Unfortunately, they had nothing to talk about, and the atmosphere in the cabin was awkward. As luck would have it, the little unicorn also made a brilliant appearance at this time, forcing himself to find the screen. Seeing this little guy biting the corner of his owner's clothes in a cute and adorable way to ask for snacks, Hagrid's heart almost melted. He immediately superimposed the Super Dad buff, holding the jerky in one hand and touching the little leopard's head with the other hand, and said gently, "Hey, little Simon, are you hungry again? Come and try this freshly made jerky." Harry was also overwhelmed by the cuteness of this little guy. He gently stroked the unicorn's head and asked, "Has it been named Simon? Last time I saw it, it was trembling when walking, but now it can run short distances, although it still can't stop, haha." "Yes, I'm amazed at how fast this little guy is growing." Hagrid was very pleased to see Harry's love for the leopard. He proudly introduced, "Now it can eat 10 kilograms of meat in one meal, although I don't know how it digests it, haha. But at this moment, Harry, I advise you to stay away from that guy. He was sent by Yang Tian. Who knows what conspiracy he might have? We have to be on guard." Who else but Ron would say such a thing? Seeing Hagrid's face full of anger, Harry tried to comfort him. But then he quickly sat down next to Ron, lowered his head and said nothing. Chapter 189. The scene in the cabin was extremely awkward, but Ron, the person involved, was as happy as if he had won a battle. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Ron simply continued to talk to Harry about their great discovery. "Snape must be up to some major conspiracy. He's been so elusive lately," Ron said mysteriously. "Nonsense." Hagrid, who was already dissatisfied with Ron, immediately said, "Are you guys starting to make random assumptions about others again?" Harry quickly explained, "No, Hagrid. We discovered something very important. Remember the troll attack on Halloween? Afterwards, we found that Professor Snape was inexplicably injured, but he didn't fight the troll. So we guessed that he wanted to get through the three-headed dog, but was bitten. He was very likely trying to steal what the dog was guarding. Hagrid became even angrier. How do you know about the three-headed dog, Lua? Fluffy, the three-headed dog. Ron exclaimed, as if he had discovered a great secret. Of course, it originally belonged to me and I raised it. A while ago, I lent it to Dumbledore to guard. Having said this, Hagrid finally realized that something was wrong and paused. Guarding what? Harry asked unwillingly when he heard the key moment, but suddenly stopped. Stop asking about things that have nothing to do with you. The most important thing you should do now is to study hard. Hagrid said angrily, that is confidential. You have no right to know. Do you understand? But Snape wanted to steal it, and so did Yang Tian. Ron was completely furious. Nonsense, Snape is a professor at Hogwarts, he would never do such a thing. And Yang Tian, what gives you the right to drag him into this matter again? Just because you made up stories like you did last time. Hagrid became even more furious. Then why was Snape injured? Ron was so bold that he spilled everything out. Why was it Yang Tian who killed the troll? Why did Snape mention the troll when Quirrell and Snape were arguing? I understand now. Just because Professor Snape was injured, you started to suspect him? Because the troll was mentioned, this matter is related to Yang Tian? Is your brain not working well? Hagrid suddenly turned his head and looked at Harry and said. Harry, I'll tell you one last time, you are making groundless assumptions and interfering in matters that have nothing to do with you. This is simply unreasonable. Now, forget about Fluffy, forget what it is guarding, forget about the relationship between Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Aha! Harry said suddenly excitedly, so this involves a man called Nicholas Flamel. Hearing this, Hagrid's face turned terribly gloomy. He suppressed his anger and said, okay, you can go back. This is not the place for you. Harry was really frightened by Hagrid's appearance. He stood there in a daze, not knowing what to do. Actually, it's not Hagrid's fault that he was angry. He was trying to persuade Harry earnestly. Whether Harry listened or not, he should at least pretend to listen carefully to show respect. This is not scheming, but politeness. Hagrid, you know, that's not what I meant. Seeing the furious Hagrid, Harry could only force an explanation. But Hagrid had no intention of speaking again. He just squatted beside Simon and stroked his fur. Simon the leopard seemed to feel his master's anger and roared in a childish voice. Then he stretched out his tongue and licked Hagrid's finger, as if to comfort his heartbroken master. Harry and Ron finally left. The only difference was that Harry left in dejection, while Ron left in high spirits. He seemed to see an unprecedented big secret beckoning to him. With this secret, he could make the crimes of the big villain Snape and the annoying Yang Tian public, making them despised by everyone. But they had no idea that Yang Tian's reconnaissance team had already spread to every corner of Hogwarts. Within half a day, the scene in Hagrid's hut reached the ears of Yang Tian and his friends. The moment Hermione heard the news, her pupils suddenly widened and she exclaimed, Yang Tian, remember that picture of the chocolate frog? Dumbledore's achievements. He and his partner Nicholas Flamel were very successful in alchemy. Then he ran to the library in a hurry. Hermione, come back! Yang Tian shouted. But the little girl was so excited that she ignored his calls and ran further and further away. After a while, Hermione came back with a huge old book, opened it, and pressed it heavily in front of everyone. However, the book clearly states, the Philosopher's Stone can turn any metal into gold and can also create the elixir of life. The only remaining Philosopher's Stone belongs to the famous alchemist Mr. Nicholas Flamel, who celebrated his 650th birthday last year. So Yang Tian, you should trust my judgment. Seeing that everyone had finished browsing, Hermione raised her little head and said confidently. There's no doubt, Hermione, I certainly believe in your judgment. But the thing is, I stopped you just to tell you that you should remember that I have read all the ordinary books in the library. If you want to know anything, just ask me directly. Yang Tian explained helplessly. Hermione was dumbfounded, staring at Yang Tian blankly for half a minute, unable to utter a word. She was extremely embarrassed at this moment, and her toes were digging together, as if she wanted to dig out a 3-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment for herself. Looking at Yang Tian's half-smiley face, Hermione simply refused to do it. She picked up the huge book with both hands and hit Yang Tian's back. Finally, All the friends, including Yang Tian, could no longer suppress their emotions and laughed out loud, ha ha ha, and the scene suddenly became lively. In the end, even Hermione, who was throwing books wildly, couldn't help laughing and collapsed under the table. After a while of fighting, Penelope finally stepped forward and asked the key question. Based on all the information we have so far, Quirrell has been trying to enter the restricted area on the 4th floor to look for the Philosopher's Stone. The friends nodded in agreement. But Penelope asked thoughtfully, but this doesn't make sense. That's the Philosopher's Stone. If you really want to protect the Philosopher's Stone, why do you have to set up a restricted area in the school and advertise it at the opening banquet? It's as if you're afraid that others don't know there's a restricted area there. And why don't you let Dumbledore carry the Philosopher's Stone with him? Who else would dare to snatch it from him? Penelope's words immediately caused the friends to ponder, but unfortunately they had no clue. Perhaps, this Philosopher's Stone itself is a bait, luring people like Quirrell out of the water? Or, is this itself a small test for the young wizard? Yang Tian said with a smile. Being familiar with the original work, he naturally understood the twists and turns in it, so he naturally wanted to let his friends know what was going on. That makes a lot more sense. Penelope suddenly realized, if that's the case, then what should we do? Leave it alone and wait for Dumbledore to close the net? No. Yang Tian said decisively, since this Qi Luo wants my life, I will not sit idly by. We must keep a close eye on him. As long as we have substantial evidence, we can rush in all at once. That will also be the time to test the results of your training. Chapter 190. After discussing the next steps with his friends and completing a series of group activities, Yang Tian finally lay down on his big bed. To be honest, Yang Tian was a little uncomfortable with the lack of intrigues from Sarek and the relaxation every day. Just as he was thinking about whether he should scan a few more books, the cold mechanical voice of the intelligent computer suddenly sounded in his mind. The deduction spell command is completed, please name it. Yang Tian was delighted when he heard this. Thinking back to the first time he destroyed the black-robed wizard, he was extremely excited. What a powerful spell that was! How could it be actually researched? Could this be considered his ultimate move? He was in a good mood and suddenly had a bad idea. Then let's name it the Tree Spirit Guardian. A cold mechanical voice sounded, do you want to receive all the information about the Tree Spirit Guard? Yang Tian immediately replied, received. Just like the previous 2 times, the elemental structure of the spell, the staff-waving gestures, the incantation, the power description and other contents all flooded into his memory. After a moment of contemplation, Yang Tian became eager to try, but when he looked at the quiet dormitory and Terry who was sleeping soundly, he immediately became discouraged. Well, let's check the effect of this spell first. But this time, he shuddered, this spell seemed a bit evil. According to the information, once Tree Spirit Guardian is used, a tree nearly 2 meters tall will quickly grow out of the ground. The tree's shape is similar to that of the bowtruckle, but each branch is sharp and hard, and is a natural weapon. At the same time, this tree relies on sucking blood and flesh to absorb nutrients. With the support of blood and flesh, the tree will grow rapidly. When the tree reaches a height of 20 meters, it will bloom and bear fruit, and a small tree spirit will be born from the fruit. After the small tree spirit leaves the mother body, it will continue to look for a place with rich blood and flesh to take root and grow into the next big tree. Of course, since it was a spell attack, such heaven-defying trees would not survive forever. They only had a lifespan of half an hour. Once half an hour was up, all the trees created by the spell would immediately dissipate and return to the world. Yang Tian was stunned. This is simply a weapon of war, okay? In other words, the more intense the war, the more people die, the more powerful his trick will be. Using the flesh and blood of the dead to feed the spell, this doesn't look like a serious spell at all. Moreover, in today's world, who would want to fight a large-scale war? Alas, I wonder if the flesh and blood of ordinary animals can achieve the same effect? Yang Tian thought. While thinking in a mess, Yang Tian was suddenly stunned. Was he thinking too much? Whether this spell was evil or not depended on who used it, why it was used, and how it was used. After figuring this out, Yang Tian smiled and fell asleep peacefully. In the next few days, everything was normal. But when Yang Tian did not receive a letter from Hogsmeade Village at the agreed time, he became inexplicably anxious. His friends knew what happened and understood his feelings, but they did not know how to persuade him. In fact, Yang Tian had been waiting for a reconnaissance report. After the predicted event occurred, he immediately informed the three parties in his power of the matter and made a series of corresponding deployments. For example, the Pig's Head bar incident targeting Kylo, and arranging tracking experts to go to Algeria for reconnaissance. Due to the importance of this reconnaissance operation, Mr. Lee sent out the most elite members of the team, Mad Dog and 2 of the 5 idiots. Before leaving, he also confirmed a regular communication date with the 3 people. But time has passed, and there is no news from the 3 detectives. Yang Tian had also sent a letter to inquire about the situation, but due to the distance, the 2 elders were at a loss. However, Li Lao and Xiao Lao also said that Mad Dog and the 2 idiots were experienced veterans, and perhaps something had held them up, so there would be no problem. But even so, Yang Tian was still under great pressure. It was he, Yang Tian, who designed the plan and gave the order. If the soldiers of the Yang family were really harmed, how could Yang Tian feel at ease? With this thought in mind, Yang Tian, who had just finished a day of classes in a depressed mood, walked into the auditorium with his friends to prepare for dinner. As they were walking, a commotion near the Greyfinder table attracted everyone's attention. But Ron was standing at the Greyfinder table, whispering something with saliva flying all over his body. He was surrounded by many first-year wizards who were watching the fun, but Yang Tian did not see Harry among them. Yang Tian was already annoyed and had no intention of joining in the fun, but he could not help but be looked at by these little wizards who were listening to the news, looking at him with uneasiness or hostility. Now Yang Tian couldn't bear it anymore. He controlled his somersault cloud and flew towards the Greyfinder dining table. Sure enough, as the distance got closer, Ron's words were heard by Yang Tian and his friends. So, do you really think that the troll attack on Halloween was defeated by Yang Tian? Don't joke, I tell you, this was a play performed by Snape and Yang Tian. One of them gained time, and the other gained fame. Don't look at their superficial incompatibility, there may be many shameful things they are doing behind the scenes. Ron spoke with a mysterious and confident demeanor, as if he were a wise man who saw through everything. There was no need to listen any further. With just these words, Yang Tian was already furious. Without any hesitation, Yang Tian flew down from the somersault cloud, drew out the ancient magic wand and said, I really underestimated you before. I thought you were just a gossipy woman who talked a lot all day. Today I learned that you have the potential to be a screenwriter. Aren't the Weasleys ashamed to have a child like you? Ron was stunned and embarrassed at first, but the next moment he became like a cat whose tail was stepped on. He suddenly jumped up, drew his wand and shouted, How dare you insult the Weasley family? I will kill you. Yang Tian said contemptuously, Let me make it clear, I am not insulting the Weasley family, I am insulting you. You want to kill me? Come on, since you have drawn your wand, point it at me, let's have a real duel. Don't be scared, there are so many people watching. I. Ron was a little dumbfounded and stammered. Don't be so pedantic. Come on, muster up your courage. Get ready, salute. Yang Tian bowed his head like a gentleman and pointed the ancient magic wand at Ron. You can't. Realizing that the situation was not good, Ron finally chose to retreat. No, I can. Come on, salute, are you scared? Don't the Weasley kids even have the courage to duel? Yang Tian continued to mock. Asshole, I'm going to kill you. After saying that, Ron ignored all duel etiquette and started chanting the spell directly. But when the spell was just halfway through, Yang Tian chanted 2 spells in succession, Expelliarmus, Levi Corpus. Ron's wand flew up instantly, and he drew a beautiful parabola, and finally hung upside down on the huge sculpture next to the wall. But at this moment, a loud shout suddenly came. Chapter 191. Junior Yang Tian, what are you doing? Why are you treating my brother like this? After the loud shout, a figure rushed down from the 2nd floor and directly appeared in front of Yang Tian. Who else could it be but Percy Weasley? Senior Percy, as someone who has been slandered and defamed behind the back by your brother many times, I need to seek justice. Yang Tian refused to give in. But you can solve the problem in other ways, such as reporting it to the school. Oh, really? I don't think this is a good idea. I can't tolerate any sand in my eyes. If it weren't for his twin brother, he should have been taught a lesson last time. Just as Percy was about to continue to refute, he heard another angry shout from a distance, Can anyone tell me what happened here? Yang Tian. This time it's not related to you, is it? What did you do? Give me an explanation. It was Professor McGonagall who walked over in anger. I've known what kind of person you are, Yang Tian. Don't try to quibble, because I've always known. Look, this is how you treat your classmates. A sinister voice came from the other direction. Who else could it be but Professor Snape? As soon as he finished speaking, he whispered again, the golden bell falls to the ground. As the wand was waved, Ron finally fell to the ground. Yang Tian only bowed respectfully to Professor McGonagall, but did not answer her question. Instead, he jokingly said to the sinister Professor Snape, "Oh? It seems that Professor Snape has admitted our complicity. Otherwise, how could he admit that he knows me and what kind of person I am? Come on, Professor Snape, let's see how you will handle this matter." "What do you mean?" Professor Snape asked unhappily, "Are you deliberately contradicting and slandering your professor?" "Haha, I really don't mean anything. It's just that just now, under the propaganda of Mr. Ron Weasley, I, an 11-year-old little wizard, have become an accomplice with the famous Professor Snape in the troll attack on Halloween. One of us did it to gain time, and the other one did it to gain fame. So I especially want to know Professor Snape's attitude. We are not really accomplices, are we?" Yang Tian said sarcastically. "Ron Weasley, I need you to give me an explanation." Snape stared at Ron with a death stare, as if he would be torn to pieces if he didn't give a perfect explanation. As the head of Gryffindor, Professor McGonagall looked at Ron in disbelief. She asked angrily, "Mr. Weasley, did you really say that?" At this moment, Ron's heart was filled with fear, and he felt as if he had gotten into a big trouble. He even wanted to bury himself in the ground like an ostrich, or just faint. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned. He was still extremely sober, and he even felt that he was more sensitive than before, and could clearly feel the disdain and ridicule of the people around him. Seeing that Ron didn't say a word, Professor McGonagall's eyes were full of disappointment. Just as she was about to scold him, Yang Tian's words came again. "Everyone is here today, but there is one thing I don't understand that needs further verification. Mr. Ron Weasley has made similar slanderous remarks many times before, such as saying that I am not a good person, stay away from me, and I have ulterior motives. And every time he kept saying that all this was told to him by his father, Mr. Arthur Weasley. So, I still want to confirm." As he spoke, Yang Tianbian turned his head to Percy and said, "Is this Ron's nonsense, or did this Mr. Arthur Weasley really say something similar? If he really said that, then what did he want to do? If this matter doesn't give me a satisfactory answer, I don't mind having a formal duel with him." More and more people came to watch the excitement, but everyone chose to remain silent. This time, the handsome little guy was really angry. Finally, Professor Snape broke the silence and said, "So, you admit that you attacked Ron Weasley?" "Yes, and I want to say that if he dares to slander me behind my back again and I find out, I will beat him up," Yang Tian said in a loud voice. "You?" Snape was about to speak, but was ruthlessly interrupted by Yang Tian. "Me? What's wrong with me? I've been in danger time and time again, and you can't even find the murderer. You ruined my reputation, and you don't let me fight back? What? Am I here to get bullied? This is my first time as a human being, why should I spoil you?" The scene fell into dead silence again. No one had ever seen Yang Tian so furious. He was reckless and fearless. He was like a powder keg that would explode with the slightest friction. But at this moment, Dumbledore's gentle voice came, "Okay, Mr. Yang Tian. I already know the cause and effect of this matter. The school will give a solution after discussion. I believe that it must be a fair result. Now, please follow me, we need to talk more. I think I can help you solve the doubts in your heart." Hearing this, Yang Tian pointed his wand at Ron, who had completely wilted, and then turned and left. In the principal's office, Yang Tian sat opposite Dumbledore again, and both of them looked very serious. "So, you killed a lot of people when you were 8 years old, right?" Dumbledore went straight to the point, staring at Yang Tian without blinking, as if he wanted to see every subtle change in the boy. Yang Tian was shocked at first, then he seemed to be thinking about something. He understood a lot almost instantly. He laughed and said, "Principal Dumbledore, I dare not say anything else, but I still trust your character, so I can tell you the truth. But you must also promise me that you can't tell this to anyone else. Does it require an unbreakable vow?" Dumbledore joked, his expression slightly softened. There's no need for that. Let's just use this secret to test people's hearts. Yang Tian answered easily, and then his expression became serious, and he continued, what you said just now is not accurate. To be precise, I killed someone when I was 5.5 years old. Dumbledore's expression turned serious and ugly when he heard this. But he did not say anything, just silently waiting for the next words. I believe you should know about my parents' escape from the Fry family. At that time, we lived in the Muggle world in the UK. When I was 5.5 years old, a big event happened. This was also the first time I saw a black-robed wizard. Yang Tian then recounted his experience at Aunt Sophia's house. Dumbledore had been listening quietly, but at this moment, he was completely moved. Chapter 192. Dumbledore asked with a bit of puzzlement and confusion, so, at that time you were targeted by that evil organization, right? And you defeated the 3 black-robed wizards by magic riot? But where were your parents at that time? Yang Tian explained calmly, they were busy developing a new potion at the time. They were very busy, so they sent me to Aunt Sophia's house. When the incident happened, there were only me, Aunt Sophia, and her child, little Cook, in the whole house. And then? Dumbledore demanded. After that? Of course it was endless pursuit and escape. Yang Tian's expression was full of contempt and indifference, until that battle between the pure-blood wizards and the black-robed wizards. What? You also participated in that battle? Dumbledore stood up in shock. Of course, it's not just me, my parents are here too. We've been hunted by this evil organization for years. You don't think that our family would just take the beatings and not fight back, do you? Yang Tian said jokingly. Is that why you returned to the Foley family? Dumbledore immediately understood. That's right. After the war, the black-robed wizards launched a frantic manhunt. There was no place for us left in the entire Muggle world, so we naturally chose to evacuate and go to the wizarding world to find our grandparents. We couldn't just wait to die, could we? Yang Tian mocked. But why don't you choose to return to China? Dumbledore still didn't understand. My father ran away secretly because he was angry with my grandfather. If there was any room for maneuver, he would never return to the country. Yang Tian said helplessly. Dumbledore did not think much about this explanation. Instead, he said to himself, so the evil spirit energy in your body is all from killing the black-robed wizard. At this time, he had understood everything, but he couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, in fact, you could have told me this news long ago. Tell you? How should I tell you? Why should I tell you? On the first day of school, I knocked on the door of the principal's office and told you, Principal, that I started killing people since I was 5.5 years old, although they were all bad guys. Yang Tian's words were somewhat disdainful. I'm sorry, child, I really didn't mean that. Dumbledore said gently, but there is one question I still don't understand, why are those black-robed wizards staring at your house? Hearing this, Yang Tian said unhappily, why else? A lone wizard in the Muggle world has no connection with the magic world. Aren't they the natural prey of evil organizations? Dumbledore suddenly felt stupid for asking such a stupid question. At the same time, he almost completely accepted Yang Tian's statement, because Yang Tian's statement was sincere and true, and there were no flaws. Especially the battle between the pure-blood family and the black-robed wizard, Yang Tian described it in great detail, and many of the details were impossible to know unless you were there in person. Of course, what Yang Tian described was the facts that concealed the Nightmare Organization and related secret operations. How could it not be true? As for what happened after entering Hogwarts, Dumbledore had already figured it out in his mind without Yang Tian explaining it. It was really a sudden enlightenment. Looking at Dumbledore, who seemed to have suddenly realized something, Yang Tian smiled and asked, can we talk about some topics that I'm interested in now? Child, I actually know what you want to ask. Let me put it this way, do you remember the grand birthday party that Barnett held for you when you just returned to the Foley family? At that time, Neville and his grandmother also attended. Dumbledore kept his promise and explained the cause and effect of the killing pearl in detail. After hearing the whole story, Yang Tian suddenly felt a cold sweat coming out. It turned out that the root of everything was actually a small killing bead, which was really unexpected. No wonder all the people who were alienated from me were from the Order of the Phoenix. It would be strange if their members didn't sit together to discuss it after discovering something unusual. Thinking of this, Yang Tian couldn't help but secretly feel lucky. Fortunately, in the previous operations to destroy the Sarek stronghold, the Yang family's soldiers rushed to fight bravely and didn't give him a chance to attack. Otherwise, if he really attacked and was detected by the damn killing bead, many things would be revealed. Okay, kid. Through today's conversation, the misunderstandings between the two sides have been resolved. What I promised you will naturally be properly resolved. Of course, it is resolved on the basis of my promise to keep it a secret for you. Dumbledore promised solemnly, but, on the issue of Ron, can you make some concessions? After all, he did this only because of some misunderstandings. Professor Dumbledore, this is also the point I want to emphasize to you. According to what you said just now, there should be quite a few little wizards who have heard the rumors about me. For example, Neville, Percy, Fred, George, and Ron, but only Ron completely ignored the facts and kept biting me like a mad dog. Especially his tricks behind the scenes and his slanderous and defamatory behavior are even more despised by me. Yang Tian said seriously. So, the biggest concession I can make on this issue is to pretend that I don't know this person from today on. But if he continues to slander me behind my back, I will resolutely fight back. After all, I, Yang Tian, am not a saint who will not fight back when bullied. Dumbledore sighed inwardly upon hearing this. He said seriously, okay, I understand your attitude. I will try my best to sort out the contradictions. Yang Tian said no more, bowed, and left the principal's office. Many students had gathered outside the principal's office. In addition to the members of Yang Tian's study group, Draco, Angelina, the Weasley brothers, Elena, and many Ravenclaw students who heard the news were waiting for his news. Unconsciously, it seemed that more and more people were concerned about him. As soon as Yang Tianyi walked out, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. While he was feeling warm-hearted, he also quickly gave everyone a gesture to relax. The next moment, he quickly stepped forward, came to the side of the Weasley brothers and said apologetically, "Hey, brother, I'm sorry, I have been patient again and again, but this time I really can't bear it. I hope this incident will not affect our friendship." No way, whether in the original novel or in reality, Yang Tian has a great affection for the twins. If the relationship between the three of them is really affected by a stupid Ron, he will feel it is not worth it. The Weasley brothers seemed to feel even more ashamed after hearing this. George and Fred seemed to have discussed it long ago. They carried Yang Tian and ran to the end of the corridor, shouting as they ran, "We will be back after talking to Yang Tian." Although they didn't know what the two were going to do, when everyone saw the mischievous smile on Yang Tian's face, they knew they had no ill intentions. So, they could only wait where they were. Chapter 193. In the corner of the corridor, there was no tension or false greetings. Fred was the first to speak. "Yang Tian, this is actually our fault. Before Hogwarts started, for some unknown reason, our father did tell the children in the family that you were dangerous and that they were not allowed to approach you. But you know, we brothers love excitement and adventure. So, we naturally approached you. After getting to know you, we found that you are a very good friend. Yes, the most important thing is that your behavior pattern suits our brother's appetite." George immediately responded, and then he said angrily, "But Ron is very stubborn. We have contacted him many times, but his opinion of you has not changed at all. You should know that I don't care what others think of me. I just can't stand Ron's way of doing things. Spreading rumors and slander, making random guesses, and now it's even worse, he's directly starting to gather people for speeches. This is too, sigh." Yang Tian felt a little embarrassed. After all, he was his own brother. "Actually, I just wanted to teach him a lesson, and I didn't use any harmful magic." "We understand." Fred patted Yang Tian's shoulder and said, "We had originally planned to go home for Christmas and have a serious talk with our father about you. But Charlie went to Romania to study dragons after graduation. Our parents were worried about him, so they went to see him during the Christmas holidays. All of us Weasley children were forced to stay in Hogwarts for Christmas, so this matter was delayed. So that's what happened." Yang Tian suddenly realized, in fact, after talking to Dumbledore just now, the misunderstanding has been resolved. "I believe it won't be long before your father hears about it." "Really? That's great. This way my silly brother won't be annoyed with you anymore," George said excitedly. Yang Tian said helplessly, "To be honest, I am not optimistic about your idea. I can only say, I hope so." George smiled upon hearing this and said, "Don't think too much. If this kid still refuses to change his ways after father's order, Fred and I can justifiably deal with him. That's right. This kid has been very arrogant since he started school. How many times have we looked for him? Every time he uses his father's words to pressure us. He really has forgotten all the good experiences he had before going to school. Fred also laughed. Okay, although I shouldn't say this. But, if you really can't deal with him, I can provide you with a lot of ideas for free. Yang Tian said seriously. Go away, stop making trouble. Use your way of thinking. Is my stupid brother still alive? How can it be so serious? Am I that kind of person? You are undoubtedly. In this laughter, the seemingly irreconcilable contradictions seem to have a tendency to disappear. Perhaps sincerity is the ultimate weapon. After just 2 days, the school came up with its handling opinion. First, the school clarified the Halloween troll attack. Professor Snape was indeed injured on Halloween Eve, but it was due to an accident when preparing advanced potions. Yang Tian and a group of young wizards defeated the troll with their own abilities, and there was no conspiracy. Ron gathered a crowd to spread false statements about his classmates and professors, and was deducted 50 house points and put Indiana solitary confinement for a month. Yang Tian forced his classmates to duel and actually fought, and was deducted 20 house points and also put Indiana solitary confinement for a month. The difference is that Ron's 1-month confinement required him to clean Hogwarts Castle every night according to Filch's instructions, while Yang Tian's 1-month confinement time was hurriedly divided up among Professor McGonagall, Professor Sprout and Professor Sinistra? Yang Tian was speechless. Are you going to let me live? This is a rhythm that makes me work non-stop. The classmates were also speechless. It was outrageous that 3 professors were competing for the students' confinement time, wasn't it? Many young wizards were envious and jealous. But one thing that was gratifying was that although Yang Tian was deducted 20 house points, the young wizards of Ravenclaw did not blame him, and even applauded him for being decisive and defending his reputation. Ron was even more speechless. Was he abandoned by the whole world? They were both first-year wizards, so why was there such a big difference in the punishment? Looking at his classmates' vague pointing and distant looks, Ron really couldn't raise his head. Fortunately, Harry was with him. Seeing Harry still sticking with him, the strong Ron finally shed tears of emotion. Later in the life of Hogwarts, Yang Tian became a beautiful scenery, because many students saw a little wizard sitting on the somersault cloud and dozing off everywhere, and the situation was indescribably embarrassing. Yang Tian was very helpless, and the professors certainly would not overexploit him as a small laborer. On the contrary, they were very caring. However, there were too many things to do at the moment. In addition to dealing with normal studies and the professors stealing people, Yang Tian also needed to scan books, explore the suitcase space, and help his friends train. So, it was completely understandable that he looked like this. The little wizards who had been envious and jealous before also breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Yang Tian's miserable state. It seems that everything has a price to pay, and studying and living honestly is actually quite good. About a week later, on Friday night, the Weasleys suddenly showed up at Hogwarts Castle. In front of almost everyone, Molly Weasley flew into a rage, scolding her youngest son and severely reprimanding him for his actions, and finally reaching the point of bringing shame to the Weasley family. Everyone present was shocked when they saw this scene. Even Yang Tian was worried about Ron's psychological endurance. As a person who was familiar with the original novel, he had no ill feelings towards the Weasleys. On the contrary, the couple's warmth and friendliness towards others, as well as their bravery in facing the enemy, left a deep impression on Yang Tian. Especially Molly Weasley, who was the warmest woman in the original novel. Just like now, Molly hugged Yang Tian with both hands, sincerely telling them how regretful and self-blaming they were after Dumbledore's explanation. Although the old headmaster did not explain the situation in detail, their trust in Dumbledore solved everything. Finally, under the escort of his parents, Ron solemnly and sincerely apologized to Yang Tian. Although he didn't know what Ron really thought, Yang Tian felt a little embarrassed after such an action. He was not a petty person. Facing the sincerity, Yang Tian sincerely stretched out his hands and said, "No matter what happened in the past, it is all in the past. Let us get to know each other again today. My name is Yang Tian, and I hope to be friends with you. My name is Ron Weasley, nice to meet you." Ron stretched out his trembling hands and shook hands with Yang Tian. Chapter 194. Time passed quickly, and it was already March. The 1-month detention at Hogwarts was about to end. It was during this period that Yang Tian finally received good news. That evening, Meng Jiao brought him the letter he had been waiting for. When he saw the content, Yang Tian finally let go of his worries, but his frown deepened. The letter was indeed a description of the situation in a reconnaissance report sent by Li Lao and Xiao Lao. Mad Dog was still alive, and the two idiots were also alive, but they were both seriously injured, and the reason they had lost contact for so long was completely out of helplessness. However, while the three were transforming and scouting in the Albanian forest, they unexpectedly discovered a strong man. It was a red robe. A red robe who had participated in the siege of the Yang family soldiers that year. Mad Dog was an eyewitness and survivor of the siege. When the three red-robed men participated in the siege, they were so unscrupulous that they did not hide their faces at all. So Mad Dog recognized the other party at a glance. A handsome middle-aged man with sinister eyes. More than 10 years have passed, and this man's appearance has not changed at all. The past events were still vivid in his mind. Mad Dog was so excited that he failed to hide his anger well, and a hint of murderous intent leaked out, which was noticed by the man in red robe. How can we allow someone else to target our organization's important goal? We must find the damned rat that sneaked in. The man in red then took out a small round plate the size of a palm, and gently lifted it with his palm and threw it into the air. The next moment, the round plate changed rapidly, and finally formed a gorgeous round table. This round table was strange, and the tablecloth was evenly divided into 12 parts, separated by white and green. Before Mad Dog and the others could take a closer look, the round table changed again. The huge round table quickly disappeared, but a huge cylindrical energy shield was formed, covering the area within a kilometer. What was even more strange was that the area inside the transparent shield was also evenly divided into 12 parts. As luck would have it, the Mad Dog and the two idiots were separated. The transparent light shield was formed, and then, naturally, the black-robed wizards would search and explore endlessly. Originally, the three members of the Yang family were not panicking. After all, they were all experts in hiding and had some escape magic tools. But what happened next made them completely uneasy. As the search intensified, the three of them chose to escape through the earth. They passed through the earth as if they had suddenly hit a wall and were bounced back. Not only that, all the parts of their bodies that had come into contact with the wall were burned by a mysterious energy. Moreover, as time went by, the energy did not dissipate, but continued to erode the bodies of the three. They took a lot of healing pills, but they only had a relieving effect and could not cure it. The three of them carefully checked and confirmed that this transparent light shield was a standard cylinder, with no gaps from the sky to the ground. And what they had bumped into before was naturally part of the transparent light shield. The three of them had also tried many talismans such as the boundary-breaking talisman and the Vajra talisman, but unfortunately, they were still ineffective. It seemed that the other party's treasure was not an ordinary thing at all. The greater danger was that their previous attempt to pass through the energy shield from underground also exposed their position. The black-robed wizards began to dig deep into the ground in the two areas designated by the red-robed wizards. If it weren't for the huge difference between the eastern and western magic systems, the three of them could use the earth escape area to move freely underground, and on the other hand, they could transform into dead objects such as stone to deceive the other party's sight. It is estimated that the three of them would have been captured by the black-robed wizards long ago. Despite this, the three were still seriously injured by the mysterious energy of the energy shield and the large-scale magic attacks of the black-robed wizards. Fortunately, the three of them persisted and fought with wits and courage, so they did not expose their whereabouts. In this way, the red-robed wizard mobilized all the black-robed wizards and spent more than a month turning the entire area upside down, but still could not find any trace of the enemy. He had no choice but to remove the energy shield, and the three were able to escape. The three escaped with serious injuries, but fortunately they met Juka, who had been gathering information nearby. After the two parties met up, Juka sent the three back to the Yang family to recuperate. Because they were trapped for a long time, the reconnaissance report attached to the letter was also very miserable. It is only known that the number of people gathered in Sarek is unknown, but there are at least 500 people, among which green-robed wizards account for a large proportion. These wizards seem to be digging and searching for something, running around in the forest all day long. At the same time, at least thousands of ordinary muggles were imprisoned, serving as free labor to speed up the search and excavation progress. On the other hand, the social order in Albania seems to be changing quietly. Theft, robbery, missing persons, and other incidents occur from time to time. But whether all this is related to Salok is not known for the time being. The most valuable part of the report seemed to be the memory image of the red-robed figure. Looking at the reconnaissance report in front of him, Yang Tian was confused. What were these Saraks looking for? What was going on with the social unrest? Could it be that they were not only looking for treasures, but also wanted to control this area? He was completely lost in thought. At the same time, in a secret room in Zabanai Manor, Mrs. Zabanai, Kira, and Sally were having a secret meeting. You all know the current situation. After this period of integration, as many as 17 families have joined the alliance. However, only 6 of them are truly loyal, and they are the 6 weakest families. The remaining 11 families all have their own plans. So what should we do now? Asked Mrs. Zabanai. There's nothing much to say. Let's first integrate the 6 families that have surrendered completely and let Kayla lead them temporarily. After all, if we exclude the master's team, her strength is too weak. Sally said sarcastically. I have no objection to me being in charge of the integration. But shouldn't we give these 6 small forces some benefits? And set an example for the other 6 families? Kayla asked tentatively. That's no problem, but which line should it be given to? It can't be too much. Zabanai said casually. How about growing some magical biological feed? It may be too small for you, but it is a rare resource for a small family. What do you think? Kayla suggested. These things are just the cunning arrangements of the 2 of you. Sally's replied impatiently, I am more concerned about the Smith family who came here this time. Although they are not members of the sacred 28 families, they are also a magic family with a long history. Of course, whether it's long-standing or not is not important. But what I can't accept is that the Smith family started running around and connecting with other members of the alliance as soon as they joined. It seems that 3 families have already formed an alliance with them. If they continue to develop at this speed, it's hard to say whether this alliance will be the master in the future. So what do you mean? Zabanai asked. Kill them. What's there to say? Not only can we wipe out these scheming scum, but we can also deter those dishonest trash. It's simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Sally answered without question. But won't this scare other families in the alliance? In fact, we can collect evidence secretly, then make it public, and then take action. Kayla suggested. Come on, Kira. Why do you need evidence? We are not the Ministry of Magic. Sally's refused to give in. Besides, we don't have that much time to chew on it. You have also seen the Master's letter. There are only a few months left. What can we do with these people? Only by cutting the Gordian knot can we make the entire alliance a solid block as soon as possible and have a greater chance of winning in the future war. That's true, but should we report it to the Master? Kayla said uneasily. Kara, what annoys me most is your cautious character. The Master has already said that he will not easily interfere in the affairs of the alliance. Let us do whatever we want, he just wants to see the results. Sally interrupted Kara and said angrily. Mrs. Zabanai thought about it, and finally made the final decision, that's right. We don't need to ask for permission for everything. Otherwise, why would we 3 be here? Then it's settled. We will combine the elites of our 3 families and the 6 small families who have already returned to our side and act together. It's time for them to submit their Pledge of Allegiance. Chapter 195. Thursday, March 1992, 3. The Hogwarts Great Hall was once again in an uproar at noon. Just this morning, in the latest issue of Transfiguration Today, Professor McGonagall and Yang Tian's academic papers on the influence of blood on transfiguration and the improved transfiguration of the evil bird were published, which amazed the little wizards. But Yang Tian's dazzling performance has also enhanced everyone's immunity, which is amazing but not chaotic. But as noon approached, the hungry little wizards were enjoying lunch in the hall. Professor McGonagall tapped her goblet elegantly, stood up, and said confidently, I have 2 things to announce. First, due to the major breakthrough in transfiguration at Hogwarts and the proven sustainable research in this field, several well-known transfiguration experts will come to our school and join the transfiguration research team. Among them is Adrian Tuttley. I believe the little wizards who have taken senior transfiguration classes should remember him. Merlin, could it be one of the 7 animagus who were officially registered like Professor McGonagall? A senior student suddenly shouted. As a result, the auditorium exploded. Is it him? I remember his animagus form was a gerbil. Doesn't that mean that 2 of the 7 officially registered animagus are actually in Hogwarts? Professor McGonagall tapped the goblet again at the right time and continued, it also includes Sierra, who is the descendant of the druid priestess Clyana. Of course, there are also some well-known experts in transfiguration who are in the process of contact. Wow! The little wizards cheered loudly. When the cheers faded, Professor McGonagall said again, and the second thing is that in view of Yang Tian's outstanding contributions in transfiguration, herbology, and potions, he will receive the Order of Merlin, 3rd class, awarded by the Wisengamot. Great, Yang Tian, did you hear that? Before Professor McGonagall finished speaking, Hermione couldn't wait to scream. Great, I knew it. You can do it. Zhang Chu also shouted. The other friends also shouted excitedly, and everyone gave Yang Tian a big hug. For a moment, the auditorium was very lively. Professor McGonagall had to knock on the goblet once again. Of course, he will also receive the Most Promising Newcomer Award from Transfiguration today. This is what the editor-in-chief Mr. Osmond told me personally. Then, you can cheer now. Then, the cheers and screams could no longer be suppressed. The whole afternoon, the students were extremely excited. They were proud of the reputation of Hogwarts. They also felt the same for Yang Tian's personal praise. Unconsciously, this boy seemed to have become their banner. Under his care and encouragement, all the students in the study group could clearly feel their own progress, whether in study or practice. But Mr. Yang Tian, the protagonist of this incident, was a little absent-minded at this time. It was not that he looked down on these honors, but he had been worried about the progress of Albania during this period. Mad Dog and the 5 idiots had withdrawn, and with the red robe in charge, Sarek was difficult to detect. But could he really do nothing but wait? After pondering for a long time, Yang Tian suddenly had an idea. He was now in the honeymoon period after reconciliation with Dumbledore and his Order of the Phoenix. Would giving this information to the headmaster have any unexpected effect? Once the idea came to him, he could no longer hold it back. Yang Tian quickly took out his feather pen and started to edit the contents of the letter. After finally finishing the afternoon classes and without even having dinner, he rushed to the principal's office in a hurry. But when he arrived at the door of the principal's office, Yang Tian suddenly remembered that he didn't know the password for today. Fortunately, before he could ask, the door of the principal's office had opened automatically. Yang Tian didn't stay for long and entered the office skillfully on the somersault cloud. "Little guy, why did you think of me today? Is there something?" Dumbledore joked, "You don't want to go to the restricted area now? I remember you have astronomy class tonight." Yang Tian could clearly sense the change in the old principal's attitude towards him, so he smiled and said, "Of course not, I will finish reading the books in the restricted area before the end of this semester. I have too many things to do now, and I am really too busy." After saying that, Yang Tian didn't hesitate and directly handed over a recopied and edited copy of the information. After reading the entire intelligence carefully, Dumbledore fell into deep thought. He whispered to himself, Red Robe Wizard, I should have seen it somewhere? Let me think." After 10 minutes, he stood up suddenly and walked to the cabinet behind him. He then used his magic wand to draw a ray of silver light from his mind and put it into a basin engraved with runes and other mysterious symbols. Yang Tian knew that it was the famous meditation basin. The next moment, Yang Tian and Dumbledore were pulled into their thoughts. It was a huge palace, decorated luxuriously, with spotless red carpets, exquisite carvings, elegant French and English classical furniture, and priceless classic paintings by art masters, all of which made people intoxicated. But for Yang Tian, these decorations were just background. What really attracted him were the people in front of him. There were only 4 people in the whole palace: an old man in formal clothes with grey beard, a sloppy old man in red wizard robe, a young Dumbledore and a young man with dazzling blonde hair. Yang Tian deeply suspected that this blonde young man was Grindelwald, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. "Welcome to outstanding young people. What do you think of what I said before?" The old man in formal attire asked expectantly. "You are all talented and ambitious. Come and serve the royal family, join hands with me and create a new world." "I'm sorry, sir. A truly great wizard is noble and free. He will not listen to a muggle's instructions." The blonde young man sneered and turned to look at the sloppy red robe and sneered, "You are also a wizard, but you are willing to work for muggles. I am ashamed of you. Little guy, don't act noble and arrogant in front of me. I know what a wizard is better than you do." The sloppy red robe said casually, "Out of courtesy, I give you a chance to choose. Do you agree to join now?" Or let me capture you and let you understand what a real wizard is before joining. Or, are you willing to serve as nutrients on the road to the wizard's success? Alger, you are still so irritable. Wait a minute. Isn't it time to make a decision now? The old man in formal attire said gently, I believe that these two young people with great prospects will definitely make the most correct choice. After that, he looked at the two of them with a loving face. Dumbledore and the blonde youth exchanged a glance, and in the blink of an eye, they drew their wands at the same time. In an instant, the magic spell shone brightly. But the next moment, Yang Tian felt dizzy and found himself back in the principal's office. Yang Tian couldn't help but shout anxiously, what happened next? What happened next? Chapter 196. Dumbledore smiled bitterly and said, after that? Of course, he was beaten to the point where he had no power to fight back, and then he fled. He did not shy away from the embarrassing moments in his youth and spoke very frankly. But the next moment, you actually managed to escape? Yang Tian asked in disbelief. Dumbledore suddenly felt a mouthful of blood boiling. What are you talking about? What do you mean by that? Are you surprised that we can escape? I'm sorry, Principal. Yang Tian said apologetically, actually, I wanted to say that he was a red-robed wizard. You were so young at the time, it was really unexpected that you managed to escape. Okay, I'm really angry. Dumbledore sat upright, trying to argue something, but in the end he sighed dejectedly, well, we were indeed too young at that time and had no power to fight back. Fortunately, Gale caught us by surprise and used an ancient dark magic to cause lasting damage to the royal family, buying time for our escape. But even so, we still escaped with difficulty and were seriously injured. Yang Tian could fully imagine the degree of danger at that time, and showed an expression of as expected. He then asked, what is the identity of the red-robed wizard named Alger? How should I put it? You should know. Before the signing of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy in 1689, wizards lived together with muggles, and the country would recruit wizards to serve the country. Some of the most outstanding wizards were hired individually by the royal family to become court magicians. And this Alger was the chief magician of the court at that time, and he had always served the royal family loyally. Dumbledore recalled. Yang Tian understood, but continued to ask, you and your friends suffered such a great loss, didn't you ever think of revenge afterwards? How could I not have thought of this? Dumbledore seemed to be lost in memory. Before the First Wizarding War, we tracked down the other party more than once. But the strange thing is that this person mysteriously disappeared and never appeared again. I guess he should be dead, right? After all, he was already quite old back then. Yang Tian was skeptical about this. He had a hunch that this red-robed man named Alger might have participated in the siege of the Yang family's soldiers. But how could this old demon-like figure live so long and still have enough fighting power? But he did not dwell on this issue, but asked another question, Professor, you have read the reconnaissance report and the details. My Yang family tracked the whereabouts of the black-robed wizard all the way to Albania, and the scene in the Albanian forest was indeed shocking. Is there any conspiracy here? What happened this time is indeed very unusual. Even when the pure-blood families fought against the black-robed wizards before, there was only one green-robed wizard among more than 200 people. But according to this reconnaissance report, the ratio of black-robed wizards to green-robed wizards has reached an astonishing 10:1. What on earth is such an elite team going to do? Dumbledore muttered in confusion. Seeing that the time was right, Yang Tian finally asked, Professor, do you think the Albanian forest is the hiding place of the Dark Lord in the prophecy? You mean? Dumbledore was obviously stunned when he heard this, then frowned and thought, this is not impossible. After all, where the Dark Lord has been is still a mystery. However, I must apologize to tell you that I still can't believe the prophecy. I admit that you are very talented, but this is indeed beyond basic common sense. More importantly, we can't act rashly. This is not a game, but related to the safety of the entire wizarding world. Do you understand? Yang Tian smiled brightly and said, Professor Dumbledore, of course I understand what you mean. But I think that necessary investigation without alerting the enemy is also a normal method, right? Dumbledore looked at Yang Tian seriously and said, I have to say that you have convinced me. I am also very curious about what this evil organization that has been committing many evil deeds in the UK suddenly gathered its elite to go to the Albanian forest. What are they looking for? Moreover, do these people have any relationship with the red-robed Alger? At the end of the words, the voice was already inaudible. After a while, Dumbledore finally broke free from his daze. He smiled again and said, "Okay, I can take some time to go to Albania. But you have to promise me not to cause trouble." "Professor, do you think I'm the kind of person who would easily cause trouble?" Yang Tian said dissatisfiedly. "From my point of view, very similar," Dumbledore said seriously. Yang Tian feels so wronged. Coming out of the principal's office, Yang Tian felt relieved. He hurried to the owl shed and handed the newly made Alger memory image and the information about the red robes introduced by Dumbledore to Meng Meng Jiao. Then he hurried to the astronomy tower. He was about to be late. The astronomy tower was particularly lively at this time. Recently, whenever Yang Tian's astronomy class was involved, it was no longer just students who attended, but also many astronomers who sat in on the class. This treatment really shocked many young wizards. But as time went on, everyone gradually accepted the reality. Today we are going to talk about the observation of Saturn. Professor Sinistra had already started teaching as soon as Yang Tian sat down. The young wizards also quickly adjusted their state and immersed themselves in the ocean of astronomy. It must be said that it was precisely because of Yang Tian's example that the young wizards studied this course very seriously. Seeing that the course on Saturn had been explained for halfway, Yang Tian, who was also immersed in it, suddenly heard a cold mechanical voice, "The deduction of the energy trajectory of Cassiopeia is complete. Do you want to receive all the deduction information?" Yang Tian was stunned when he heard this, but he still answered subconsciously, "Received." The next moment, information burst out from the intelligent brain screen and merged with the memories in the mind. Yang Tian carefully reviewed the memories in his mind, completely immersed in them. Unlike before, after forming a permanent bond with the stars, he read the new energy trajectory again, and he actually had a mysterious feeling, a feeling that was indescribable. Yang Tian stood up in a daze, seeming to have completely forgotten that he was in the classroom, and even more so the students and scholars around him. He murmured in a low voice, "How could it be so fast? How could it be so fast?" and walked quickly to the upper level of the astronomy tower. Chapter 197. At this time, Yang Tian, who was on the upper floor of the astronomical tower, was concentrating. He kept adjusting the position and focus of the telescope, trying to find something. Beside him, there were many onlookers, the little wizard, the scholar, Professor Sinistra, and the three giants Stella who came after hearing the news. After an unknown amount of time, Yang Tian suddenly stopped what he was doing and began to observe carefully. After just a moment, the onlookers noticed a strange phenomenon, and saw that a very small area in the gorgeous starry sky was shining abnormally. Not only that, among the shining stars, the alternation of bright stars and dark stars seems to be depicting a series of mysterious and wonderful pictures, and the energy tracks quickly emerge in the pictures and disappear quickly. Thinking of what she had explained to Yang Tian before, and looking at the approximate location of the shining stars at this time, Stella, who had already made some guesses, exclaimed, "Merlin, is that Cassiopeia?" The two astronomical giants, Castor Cassini and Arthur Trivette, were also shocked when they heard this. The three of them picked up the astronomical telescopes with trembling hands and began to observe carefully. As time went by, Cassiopeia gradually began to glow white, and a straight white beam of light shot out, rushing towards Yang Tian. Yang Tian had completely recovered his lucidity at this time, and he once again felt the characteristics of the light element from the starry sky. Similar to the previous constellation stargazing method, the light element energy obtained from Cassiopeia made the light element in his Danshan evolve again. Looking at the liquefied white three-legged crow in his Danshan, he was inexplicably happy. The onlookers were also completely shocked by this series of changes. Some things are like this: hearing is not believing, seeing is believing. Although these astronomers have heard of Yang Tian's amazing deeds, when all this happened before their eyes, who can really remain calm? For a moment, the voices of discussion arose. But Yang Tian seemed to think that today's shocks were not enough, he obviously had no intention of stopping. So, the next moment, he slowly closed his eyes, feeling the stars that had formed a bond with him, Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Equus and so on. There was no need to look for these stars, because they were there, closely connected with him. What else is there? Where is it? Yang Tian is not anxious, and continues to feel it with his heart. It was there. This little guy seemed to be shy and was playing hide and seek with him. But the purity of the light was real. Yang Tian once again fell into enlightenment. As time passed, the long-awaited trajectory thread finally appeared, and after being completely solidified, it split into two, then, the third, the fourth. Finally, all the newly generated light element trajectory threads were tied into a bundle, and the ninth bundle of trajectory was finally completed. At this moment, the 8 beams of light that had disappeared on their own also appeared one after another, complementing the newly generated light element trajectory. It is worth mentioning that the 2 light element trajectory beams did not have any tendency to merge. Unlike what one might imagine, the astronomical tower was surprisingly quiet at this time. Everyone was stunned by the mysterious and magnificent scene before their eyes. Yang Tian stood proudly in it like a darling of the stars, enjoying the favor and protection of the stars. Before anyone could react, Professor Sinistra's ethereal voice spoke first. "Okay, students, due to a sudden change, today's astronomy class ends here. Now, please don't make any noise and leave the astronomy tower in an orderly manner. Yang Tian will stay." Before he finished speaking, the astronomy tower was in an uproar, with voices of opposition rising one after another. "Oh, no. Professor Sinistra, get out of class isn't over yet. I still want to ask Yang some questions." "That's right, let's also understand the wonders of astronomy." Yang Tian didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this, but remembering that the incident was caused by him, he quickly stepped forward and said, "I'm really sorry for everyone today. I don't know what happened just now, and I suddenly had that kind of mysterious feeling, which affected everyone's teaching. I'm really sorry." Seamus Finnegan from Gryffindor suddenly jumped out and said exaggeratedly, "Come on, Yang Tian, don't say that. Seeing such a magical sight today is enough for me to brag about my holiday." His words also drew approval and laughter from everyone present. "Okay, little wizards, although I understand your desire, we really need to clear the area. If your curiosity is really strong, you can ask Yang Tian in private. Now, please leave in an orderly manner." Professor Sinistra also shouted again at the right time. Although they were met with complaints, the little wizards failed to defeat the dragon and left unwillingly. "Yang Tian, have you really completed the visualization of Cassiopeia?" Stella asked impatiently as soon as the little wizards left. "Yes, the visualization has been completely completed," Yang Tian said with a smile. Castor also asked anxiously, "Didn't you say before that it would take a long time?" Yang Tian smiled bitterly when he heard this, but he suddenly remembered the answer given by the intelligent computer when he asked unconsciously just now, so he hurriedly explained, "Mr. Cassini, it does take a long time. However, the astronomy books you provided me during this period have given me a lot of inspiration. For example, your book, Guardians of the Stars, is closer to mythology, but some of the words in it are thought-provoking. For example, the noble queen sits leaning on a chair inlaid with 2 stars. This is actually a myth about Cassiopeia, but it points out the root of 1/3 of the trajectory, for example." Yang Tian introduced the knowledge points of each book in detail. "Of course, there is also Mr. Trouvé's book Attraction of Stars, Ms. Mapple's Exploration of Stars and Dark Stars. Is that so? I have read the book Guardian in the Stars many times, and it turns out that such important information is hidden in it." Castor murmured to himself. Situations similar to his are not uncommon, and all astronomy experts who are named feel more or less disappointed. Seeing this, Yang Tian explained, "Dear experts and scholars, please don't have this expression. The reason why I can understand the true meaning is because I put these books together for analysis. If you take out a single book to study, who would think in this direction?" Everyone thought it made sense. Maybe pooling their treasured books together could really speed up the revival of ancient astronomy? However, these issues could be discussed later. The most important thing now was the energy trajectory of Cassiopeia. So, under everyone's strong request, Yang Tian took out the parchment and deduced the simplest energy trajectory of Cassiopeia. When Yang Tian returned to the dormitory under the escort of Professor Sinistra, it was already past curfew, and Meng Jiao had been waiting outside the window for a long time. Li Lao's reply was simple: the red robe named Alger did participate in the siege of the Yang family generals that year. Chapter 198. March 3, Saturday. After a winter break, the Hogwarts Quidditch match started again. The two teams were the Ravenclaw team that had shined in the previous match and the Slytherin team that was known for its brutality and ferocity. Everyone thought it would be a fierce battle. Unfortunately, it was completely wrong. After the game started, Yang Tian, who had performed brilliantly before, naturally became the focus of the Slytherin's attention. But when the chasers Darian Sepp and Marcus Flint's double-team collision was finally dodged by Yang Tian like a dragonfly skimming the water, and the two colliding players collided with each other. When the bludger hit by the batsman Lucien Bowl was finally deceived by Yang Tian and hit his own goalkeeper Miles Black. When Marcus Flint, who was desperate to lose, performed a Transylvanian fake but was ruthlessly knocked away by Yang Tian, all the Slytherins knew that they were powerless to turn the tide. Sure enough, just 40 minutes later, Zhang Qiu, under the escort of Yang Tian, got the golden snitch again before Terence Higgs. The entire Quidditch stadium was suddenly filled with thunderous cheers. Wow, what a visual feast, what a crushing victory. The final score is 240-0, Ravenclaw wins. Lee Jordan announced the result of the game enthusiastically in an extremely exaggerated tone. Ravenclaw! 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 The little eagles shouted collectively. But at this moment, someone suddenly shouted, Yang Tian! Overlord of the Sky! In an instant, many young wizards followed suit and shouted, Overlord of the Sky! Overlord of the Sky! Overlord of the Sky! The sound became more and more uniform, and louder, and it lasted for a long time. After a hearty victory, Ravenclaw should have had another carnival party. However, Yang Tian and his friends declined the party on the grounds that they were going to conduct new academic research. At the same time, Yang Tian also said that there was no need to make a big fuss about the victory of a game. After Ravenclaw defeated Gryffindor and won the Quidditch championship, they would hold a grand celebration. The new Sky Overlord's statement did not cause any resentment among the young wizards. Instead, everyone admired his confidence. The enthusiasm of the crowd did not diminish at all, and heated discussions continued. The names of Yang Tian and Zhang Qiu, who performed brilliantly, were also mentioned crazily on campus. But some little wizards were also surprised to find that Yang Tian, Zhang Qiu, and their friends, who were the focus of the discussion, were missing. They didn't even show up in the auditorium during dinner, which disappointed many little wizards who wanted to see Yang Tian up close. So where did Yang Tian and the others go? Actually, Yang Tian wanted to fulfill a promise he had made to his friends a long time ago. He had been secretly preparing for this day for a long time. As the sky gradually darkened, people were seen moving quietly in the dark on the road outside the castle leading to the Black Lake. They soon gathered in a low-lying area with their backs to the castle. As the magic light of the magic wand flashed, the faces of Yang Tian and his friends were clearly visible. In fact, as soon as he arrived at the gathering place, Yang Tian started to get busy. He first waved the ancient magic wand, and rays of light shot up into the sky. They merged with each other in mid-air and finally formed a huge semicircular light shield. Then he directed his friends to use transfiguration to create a giant circular table with a huge round hole in the middle. At the same time, more than 10 high chairs appeared in an instant. Everything was ready. Yang Tian took out a small bronze hot pot from his white jade ring. With a wave of his hand, the bronze hot pot flew to the center of the ring table and quickly grew larger. After a moment, it became a giant hot pot with a height of 5 meters and a diameter of 3 meters. What was even more amazing was that the edge of the hot pot was the same height as the ring table, fitting perfectly. Obviously, everything was calculated. This scene made the friends amazed. The inside of the bronze hot pot was also divided into 9 neat compartments. Penelope asked in confusion, "Why is this hot pot divided into compartments? Is there one for each person?" "That's not enough." Yang Tian took out a water bag from his white jade ring calmly, and poured water into the pot while explaining, "This is not divided by number of people, but by taste. There are 9 grids and 9 flavors. You can try them one by one when the time comes." Parvati seemed to be unable to wait and said, "Yang Tian, how long will it take to fill your water bag? Let's use the clear water from the spring to help." After saying that, she was about to draw out her magic wand to cast a spell, but was stopped by Yang Tian. "Don't mess around. This skin of mine is a treasure. I asked my grandfather for it for temporary use. It is filled with the best spring water. This kind of spring water is sweet and can fully stimulate the original flavor of the ingredients when used for hot pot. How can it be compared with clear spring water?" Seeing the impatient looks of his friends, Yang Tian couldn't help but laugh and said, "Have you ever heard of the Chinese proverb that says you can't eat hot tofu if you are impatient? I really can't do anything to you." As he said that, he tapped the leather bag 3 times, and the water jet from the leather bag instantly became much larger. This operation attracted another round of amazement from the friends. "Yang Tian, I have discovered that you are really a hidden talent. Anything you take out is a masterpiece of alchemy. Hannah sighed casually. It's not as weird as you say. It's nothing more than an alchemical product of the traceless stretching spell. I believe that once we grow up a little more, we can make it ourselves. Yang Tianbian comforted while adding 9 different raw materials into the 9 grids respectively. Light the charcoal in the middle fire tube, cover the huge copper pot with a lid, and all that's left is to arrange the dishes. Following Yang Tian's gesture, plates of exquisite hot pot dishes flew out of the white jade ring in an orderly manner and were neatly placed on the circular table. Various sauces flew to a separate place and were placed in order for the friends to choose. With another wave, a wide variety of drinks flew out and were arranged in another place. I have to say, it tasted good. The water hasn't boiled yet and the lid hasn't been opened, but the kids have already started a fight to grab the food. Don't grab the seat from me. I want to sit in front of this spicy hot pot. Oh, and the tripe, duck intestines, beef tripe, mine, all mine. The usually gentle Zhang Qiu completely disregarded his image at this time. He sat down on the seat he had chosen, and like a hen guarding her food, he brought all the dishes he liked to his side and protected them well. Qiu, please, be a little more capable, it's just a meal, why are you exaggerating so much? Sisterhood really can't stand the test. Penelope looked at Zhang Qiu with resentment, but she pulled a few plates of beef to her side and continued, learn more from me, just take some common meats, and share new things with everyone. Before he finished speaking, Padma's voice came from afar, are you sure that these beefs measured in muggle ounces are the common meats you mentioned? I have seen them at my father's banquet. After saying that, she quietly moved a plate of unknown ingredients to her side. Seeing this, Zhang Qiu nudged Yang Tian with his elbow and whispered, what is Padma holding on to? Why don't I recognize it? Yang Tian smiled and replied, wild humphead ras lips. I didn't expect this little girl to know some good stuff. Then he laughed and said to his friends, I have prepared enough of each ingredient here. There will be more after you finish eating, so don't hide it. Now let's choose the drinks first. I'm not afraid to tell you, eating hot pot will make you thirsty, so drinks are indispensable. The friends also looked curious and started to act with laughter. But at this moment, Yang Tian's face fell, and he asked helplessly, why are there so many people here again? Did you notify them? Chapter 199. The friends looked in the direction of the sound. Wow! They saw many people coming outside the light curtain one after another, looking around for something. Because of Yang Tian's magic shield, the outside world could not see the shield and the details inside the shield. Penelope took a look and said with a puzzled but embarrassed look on her face, I called Angelina and Elena here. We get along very well in the Transfiguration Club, so I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to her more today. But what about the others? Neville also looked outside and said weakly, Senior Cedric came to see me. He is always very nice to us in Hufflepuff. After the Quidditch game today, he chatted with me and expressed his desire to join our study group. Hannah and I don't dare to make the decision, so we wanted to take advantage of today's gathering to let him come and get along with everyone, and then ask for everyone's opinions. As for the others, I really don't know. Yang Tian looked at the other friends with a questioning look. Pansy jumped up like a frightened rabbit and explained in a low voice, I called Draco here. Goyle and Crabbe should have followed Draco. After all, they are inseparable. Yang Tian, I have already reported to you that the Malfoy family clearly stated that they wanted the Parkinson family to help introduce Draco into the circle. Yang Tian laughed when he heard this and said, what are you doing? I'm not here to accuse you, I'm just asking casually. Then he started to tease, now that everyone else knows where they came from, has anyone claimed the Weasley twins? Seeing that no one responded, Yang Tian said jokingly, come with me to pick them up. See how I tease these two brothers. But at this moment, Daphne suddenly said in disgust, it doesn't matter to others, but what the hell are those two hiding in the distance? Haven't they apologized and reconciled? Why are they still sneaking around? I wonder if they have some conspiracy. Everyone looked in the distance following the sound. Oh my goodness! Isn't that Ron and Harry? What is this? Surveillance. The hot-tempered Parvati was the first to quit. Why not just go and ask them what they want to do? Hermione frowned. Forget it, let them monitor us. Since we are not of the same kind, it is better not to force ourselves to get together. Penelope said casually. The friends thought it made sense, so they stopped talking and quickly followed Yang Tian out. Hey, fellow seniors, why are you coming to me so late at night instead of enjoying your wonderful vacation? Do you miss me too much? Yang Tian asked jokingly. Angelina said with a look of disgust when she heard this, Go away, go away. Senior Elena and I are not here to see you. We are here to see Penelope. As for the Weasley brothers, they overheard our conversation and followed us here. It has nothing to do with us. After that, she dragged Elena, who was reluctant, towards Penelope. Fred was immediately dissatisfied when he heard it. What do you mean by eavesdropping? You guys are talking so loudly, do we still need to eavesdrop? George also replied with an indignant look on his face, That's right, that's right. And I want to say that we have always been honest. I dare to tell Yang Tian frankly that we just want to experience Oriental food. We are just greedy. Humph, unlike you. Everyone burst into laughter after hearing this. It must be said that where the Weasley brothers are, there is never a lack of laughter. Among them, only one person did not laugh, and that was Elena. Originally, the personal feud between her and Yang Tian had been at a stalemate. For a while, she was determined to secretly follow Yang Tian every day, hoping to find an opportunity to give Yang Tian a hard time and take revenge. Who would have thought that Yang Tian was smarter than a monkey, and her schemes were no match for him, and he easily dodged them. Later, Yang Tian was injured and taken back to the clan to recuperate, and the grudge could only be temporarily put aside. But when school started again, this inconspicuous junior brother was already like a star, and there was no chance for revenge. It must be said that this was almost becoming Elena's nightmare. So, when Penelope and Angelina talked to her about Yang Tian's party, her reaction was cold. How could this lady miss that meal? But due to the two women's bombardment, she was forced to come. But now? Are you greedy? Who are you talking about? Elena was ready to pull out her wand and beat someone. Fortunately, Penelope and Angelina reacted quickly and hugged the senior sister directly. The two brothers felt aggrieved. George said aggrievedly, What? If you have the guts, go find Yang Tian to settle the score. Why are you bullying us? Fred also whispered, That's right, if you can beat him up, we will cheer for you. Yang Tian put his arms around the brothers' necks with a dangerous look in his eyes and said, I noticed that you two are not only here to enjoy the food, but also to ruin the pot. Now shut up immediately, otherwise, I won't give you any food for a while. The two brothers just wanted to take the opportunity to step down, and they stopped talking after hearing this. Yang Tian hurried to Elena and said flatteringly, Senior sister, it is said that there is no friendship without fighting. Today's hot pot feast is also an apology to you. If you are not satisfied with the food later, you can throw me into the Black Lake to vent your anger, is that okay? After that, without giving Elena a chance to speak, he signaled everyone to surround the reluctant senior sister and walk into the protective cover. Although they had been mentally prepared before coming, the newcomers were still shocked by the grand dinner scene before them. Such a scene was indeed unprecedented. Under the guidance of their friends, everyone followed the local customs, got some drinks, and sat together to chat. At this time, white mist rose from the dining table, obviously the soup base had boiled. Yang Tian pulled out his magic wand and waved and shook it, and the huge pot lid floated to the side. What the Weasley brothers have in front of them is Chow Shan beef hot pot. The soup base is made from the best beef vertebrae slaughtered that day, combined with red dates, wolfberries, and other ingredients. You must remember, cook the neck for 8 seconds, the toes for 15 seconds, and the dragon head for 10 seconds. Of course, if you eat this kind of hot pot, you can try cha-cha sauce, chili sauce, and punning soybeans as dipping sauces. Yang Tian introduced to everyone how to eat the hot pot in front of them. Yang Tian, what's this pot of mine? It feels like just clear water. Why is yours so rich? Are you bullying me and Senior Elena for not understanding? Angelina's dissatisfied voice came. Don't be so unfair to me. This is the authentic old Beijing mutton hot pot. It uses the finest spring water, and the taste is pure. Just add some scallions, ginger slices, and star anise. But the dipping sauce is particular. It needs sesame paste, chives, fermented tofu, and according to different tastes, it can be matched with old vinegar, shrimp oil, fish sauce, and so on. Yang Tian gave another eloquent explanation, which stunned the two beautiful senior sisters. Zhang Qiu, you should know that what you have in front of you is Guangdong seafood hot pot, right? This is also called hot pot, and the food is all about freshness. Next, the Yunnan wild mushroom hot pot, Guangxi grouper hot pot, Hainan coconut chicken hot pot. Yang Tian's explanation one by one opened the eyes of everyone present. Everyone also hurriedly prepared their own sauces according to Yang Tian's instructions. But just when everything was ready, everyone discovered a fatal problem: they didn't know how to use chopsticks. Except for Yang Tian and Zhang Qiu, all the friends stared at the two small wooden sticks in front of them in a daze. Yang Tian also slapped his forehead, completely convinced. How could he have forgotten such an important detail after all the planning? But the friends also had their own tricks. Except for the Weasley brothers who insisted on using chopsticks, which caused a lot of laughter, the others drew their wands and used the levitation spell to the extreme. For a while, the scene was very lively. Of course, playing is fun, but eating is even more fun. Chinese food is unimaginably delicious for Britain, which is known as a food desert. Wow, this beef is so delicious, spicy and sizzling, so delicious. Hermione, try my coconut chicken hot pot. The soup base is especially sweet. Chapter 200. While enjoying the food, a group of new and old friends were chatting about all sorts of things and having heated discussions. Even Elena was attracted by the delicious food and harmonious chat atmosphere and completely integrated into it. The only exceptions are Draco and his two followers. Goyle and Crabbe are fine, they just eat as much as they want, but Draco is not just here for a meal. But they can't really talk to each other, what can they do? It's urgent to wait online. It's not that everyone dislikes him or isolates him, it's just that Draco is just a first-year wizard now. This sounds contradictory, but it is not. As a wizard, most of the conversations are about magic. Not to mention the seniors, even Hermione, Neville, Hannah, etc., although they are also freshmen, have far surpassed their peers under Yang Tian's guidance, so the gap is naturally formed. For example, "Wow, Hannah, is this on your arm the protective bracelet you are going to give each of us?" Padma suddenly exclaimed. "Yes, how is it? Beautiful, right? But it's not finished yet. There are some problems with the carving of the mithril." Hannah said a little discouraged. "What's wrong with the engraving? Tell me about it. I think what you engraved is a variant of runes. The symbol representing wind is not engraved in a standard way." Hermione said solemnly. "What, is it here?" Hannah asked hurriedly, and Hermione also began to point out patiently. "I see. It looks like this needs some more changes." Hannah said gratefully, but then she sighed, "But the biggest problem is not here, but the secondary purification of mithril. The mithril I have now is not up to standard in terms of magic power transmission. How about using flame wood as a combustion aid?" Neville asked. "Adding a combustion aid made from this plant can greatly increase the flame temperature." Everyone spoke freely, including the seniors who came to eat for free, but Draco had a dull look in his eyes. Goyle and Crabbe lowered their heads and ate madly. Pansy was exhausted and couldn't take care of it. Yang Tian watched everything that happened in front of him, but he didn't say much. He also listened with great interest and spoke from time to time. Not only that, he also instructed everyone to take turns to change seats and try different flavors of hot pot. 9 grids, 9 flavors, each of which can satisfy everyone's desire for food. Unknowingly, everyone has been completely immersed in the ocean of food. After the meal, everyone was full and satisfied. But they didn't seem to be in a hurry to leave, and continued to lean back in their chairs to digest the food and chat. Yang Tian keenly felt that today's main meal seemed to be coming. As expected, George asked flatteringly, "Yang Tian, how often does your study group hold meetings? Is it once a day? Can my 2 brothers join us?" Yang Tian rolled his eyes upon hearing this and said in dissatisfaction, "Go away, what are you thinking about? In your eyes, our study group is just a place for eating. That's not the way it's said. Study groups are naturally focused on learning, but eating is also very important, right? We're doing this for everyone's benefit, why don't you ask for everyone's opinions?" Fred said slyly. Yang Tian looked back and saw his friend's expectant eyes. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "You guys are amazing. A hot pot meal can corrupt you like this." After a pause, Yang Tian couldn't help but look at the Weasley brothers and asked, "You two really want to join?" The 2 brothers answered without hesitation, "Of course." As soon as she finished speaking, Angelina couldn't wait to say, "Senior Elena and I want to join too." Yang Tian looked at the 2 seniors in surprise, especially at Elena, whose eyes were even weirder. Elena, however, remained unmoved. She drank her juice coldly and simply acquiesced. Cedric also interrupted at this time, "Young brother Yang Tian, I also want to join the study group, is it possible?" "And us?" Draco immediately expressed his opinion and tapped Goyle and Trab on the head. The two stupid men nodded quickly. Yang Tian scratched his head. Due to the intrusion of Saruk, his team had integrated surprisingly quickly, and now they were united. Although it was a bit hasty to introduce new people now, it was not impossible. However, Yang Tian had a plan as soon as his eyes rolled. He did not rush to answer everyone, but looked at Elena with a smile on his face and said, "Senior sister, are you satisfied with this hot pot?" Elena was a little cold, but she was definitely not someone who went against her conscience. After a slight hesitation, she nodded slightly. Yang Tian was delighted when he saw this and said, "So the little misunderstanding between us is resolved." "Humph." Elena had to speak up, "You barely passed." This generation of cold and beautiful women was finally won over by Chinese food. Yang Tian was overjoyed when he heard that, but he still cleared his throat and continued, "We are a study group, so the focus is still on studying. As everyone knows, several professors have been pushing us hard recently, and seniors Elena, Angelina and Cedric are all top students in our Hogwarts. So, starting tomorrow, the 3 seniors will take over my work in the group, and take turns teaching everyone advanced courses every day, and answering questions." Hearing this, Elena finally broke down and jumped up. "Why? You embarrassed me in front of the whole school, not only didn't let me take revenge, but you also wanted to use me as free labor? You really think it's a good idea?" "Hey, senior sister, that's not right. As for the embarrassing matter, we are even now. I just asked you about it." Yang Tian was fed up and immediately retorted. "Okay, this idea of yours. No way." Elena became even more unhappy. Yang Tian was about to refute when he heard this, but was stopped by Angelina. She hugged Elena's shoulders intimately and said, "Hey, don't be so harsh. The door is gone, but we still have the window." Seeing her best friend betray her, Elena became even more anxious. But she heard Angelina say, "As long as you teach us twice a week according to this standard, I promise I can convince you." And Elena didn't refute. But Yang Tian couldn't agree to that. He jumped up and down. "What? 2 meals a week? Do you know how much effort I put into preparing this one meal? 2 meals a week, 1 meal every 2 years is about right. No, let's put it this way. 1 meal a week, no less. 1 meal a year. Are you sincere? 1 meal every 2 weeks is fine, right? We're already giving you a lot of face." In the end, Yang Tian hired 3 extracurricular tutors for his friends at the cost of 1 meal a month. After the verbal battle, Yang Tian turned his attention to the Weasley brothers. "I know you have always been fond of inventing funny things. These are already low-level applications of alchemy. Hannah is also very interested in this. The 3 of you should study her protection bracelet together first. We can talk about the rest after the bracelet is completed. Don't be ridiculous. My brother and I enjoy making funny things, but it's a bit of an exaggeration to say that this is alchemy. It's a huge subject, and what we have learned is not even the beginning," George said modestly. "But then again, even with this little knowledge, not everyone can understand it. It requires a strong understanding. At least few of you here can understand it." Fred immediately responded. Hearing this, George immediately gave Fred a look that said, "You know me." Well, it was still the same familiar recipe and taste. Everyone rolled their eyes. "Stop talking nonsense, it's settled. But if you dare to disobey, Chinese cuisine will not have anything to do with you." Yang Tian was not going to be polite with the Weasley brothers. Seeing the 2 brothers who agreed to the task with their heads down, Yang Tian was very proud. He looked at Draco, Goyle and Trab again. With their expectant eyes, Yang Tian patted Draco on the shoulder and said, "You are still weak now. Learn from other members of the group first. When you catch up, you will naturally be able to use your skills." Draco's face fell instantly. He was just so embarrassed. Happy times are always short. Looking at the time, it was almost curfew. The friends cleaned up the mess and played for a while before walking into the castle with laughter.